The following episode will contain references to stories and characters that may cause sudden and uncontrollable feelings of nostalgic joy and wonder. Listener discretion is advised.
You know who you are? Steeven is my name. Even Steeven.
Will you say something, Steeven?
Steeven or Else Media.
The following episode was recorded in front of a live streaming audience on Sunday, January the 11th, 2026. Hello and welcome to the Comic Book Super Show. I'm a host. My name is Steeven, and 1,000 miles over there to my right is another host, Mr. Ed Moore. Ed, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Want to give everybody the heads up to go ahead and stop listening now. Pack this away so you keep it 9/8. You can get it and put it in a nice shiny plastic wrapper. Down the road, it's a number one. You got some
right.
keys, some key appearances here. This is it. This is your chance.
Yeah.
Do it, get it, save it, and join us next time for episode 2. You can trash episode 2. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Nobody buys
Yeah.
2s.
No,
1s
screw
is what
2.
they're after in a nice, pristine, hard plastic, which I don't know how you do that with vocal, but there you go. That's your problem, not mine, because I don't do it anyway. So
What you do is you take your device, you dial up this episode, and then you send it to a place that will evaluate its value. Then
Grade
they will
it, right.
encase your device in a plastic block. So you're
that's
never
it.
going to,
Okay.
you can't listen to it, but it's there and it's worth, it'll tell you how much it's worth.
well, and I mean, isn't that the point? You can't look at it except for, okay.
Speaking of which, I just saw Peter Rios the other day, just kind of going off on the slabbing of, he was going off more on the term raw comics.
Oh,
when they
yeah,
talk about
okay.
a comic that's not slabbed.
that's
That's just the dumbest thing.
Raw and floppy are still two words for comic books that I'm not digging. I don't.
Yeah. You don't want your comic book to be floppy, frankly, because
I'm looking
I think
for
of
a
spine.
raw number 27 and a 9/8 to 9/9. Get the fuck out of here.
Exactly. Beat it,
You comic bro. Go on. Just
comic bro.
Yeah.
So
speaking of which, although I do have to say, it would not have gotten $15 million if that Action Comics number 1 had not been graded 9/8 and in a plastic shield.
probably
I will say that. So
it might, and it might also do some. Yeah, you're talking about a book that's that old, though. You gotta kind of nobody.
No doubt, you have to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, you were almost obligated. You're
Yeah.
like, oh shit, I got to make sure that
right.
Yeah.
Somebody goes flipping through that, and pages are going to crumble and
But
shit.
Can
you know?
imagine
Yeah.
Action 1 in a 9/8? It's like that's impossible. There's no way that would last.
I know,
and
right?
be able to,
Somebody, I don't know where they stored that book. That must have lived in some part of the world that just had the greatest climate. That
I don't know.
it's crazy.
Even from the earliest provenance that I'm aware of was Nick Cage. I don't know where he got it, but even the person he got it from, if they're the first owner, Nick Cage lost it in 2000. Don't know how long he'd had it. He couldn't have had it more than, we'll say, 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you're looking at 1980 from 1930, 39?
38.
To be that long, it would have had to have been a 9/8 for him to get a hold of it and keep it, so it's just like how I would love to know the full story to know how that is even possible.
I know that there were people back in the late 30s, early 40s, the kids that were buying these comics, and one out of every 1,000 kids that would buy one of those comics, some of them actually would wrap them up in just I don't know if plastic wrap was a thing back then, but their kids would as soon as they realized that this was not something that they wanted to get rid of, some of them would. People have those mindsets that are like, I have to take care of this.
You've moved
for some reason.
You hand it down to kids. Kids move. Yep. Most kids, 1 out of 100 kids are going to care about it. The other 99 aren't going to care about the comic book they've been given. So there's that. So you're looking at probably being passed down twice or 3 times before the current, preserve it kind of mentality. Still, I'm just like, how do you do that?
And I feel like with some of these big name comics like that, some folks tend to their parent dies or their grandparent dies or something, right? So they go to the house to clean it out. Right. It's the same house that person grew up in. Right. And then they find like in the wall or something, they're storing these comics and it's just like,
but still, wow, I mean, crazy. Even the lived in, somewhere like, I don't know, Arizona or Texas, where it's dry and hot, their whole life. And it was just in a box in the attic. Yeah. But how many times did that box get moved? It shook and the corners. I have comics up in the attic that I've had since I was 15 that have gone through 3 or 4 different moves. Yeah, they're not in good shape. They're not in great shape. I mean, it happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, a 9.8 for something that old, that is just like good on everybody who has ever owned that and has managed to do that. That is, that's amazing.
Speaking of Nick Cage, there's a really good podcast out there called Stealing Superman. It's a miniseries that is kind of a documentary style podcast talking about his copy of Nick Cage's copy of Action #1 being stolen. It's really good. They go into a lot of the history of why Action Comics is, #1 is so rare, and the history of the dealership side for expensive books. It's really good. Art theft, all that stuff. It's a really good, cool freaking episode. Now for this podcast, we want to welcome everybody to it's our first episode of this new podcast. And if you've ever listened to the Superman Super Show, this is exactly the same podcast, except we're not talking about only Superman. Ed and I guess, I'm going to speak for Ed. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but we wanted to have a chance to talk about some other books every once in a while. Yeah. And so the Comic Book Super Show has been born. We're going to try to stick with a format where we talk about storylines, one storyline at a time, and then each season will be a storyline. So this season 1, is the 6-issue mini Kitty Pryde and Wolverine from 1984. And then beyond that, we don't know. I have a list of stuff that I know that I want to talk about, like Avengers Under Siege from 1986, Elf Quest, the original Quest. I thought it'd be fun maybe to do a season here and there on like one of the New Universe titles, because those only lasted up to 12 or 13 issues or something. Mm-hmm. And then the only other thing that really springs to mind is Iron Man Armor Wars. So a lot of Marvel there for me. It tells you what I grew up on. What about you? Do you have some stuff you want to talk about?
Mine is a little bit farther afield than the quote unquote mainstream. Couple reasons. One, because that's just where a lot of my interests now in my old age go, but also because if I have an opportunity, I think I should take the opportunity to talk about books that I really don't hear anybody else talking about. Yep. That certainly is not my main reason for picking, because a lot of the books that I'm not talking about are because I don't give a damn about them. So, that's, some things like, let's say, John Sable Freelance, the first 6, 8, 10, 12, but, however many we want to, because there's not, until you get into the 20s, there's not like a set storyline that you go through because it was a brand new book. So most of them are just one-offs or maybe 2 issues or something like that. Okay. How about a character? Maybe you've heard of this character, Coyote. Do you remember Coyote?
I have, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Both of those titles that you've mentioned so far, I only know them because my brother bought them. Okay. I don't know if he got them beyond issue 1s or so. I just remember them laying around. I never read them, but I would see the covers and think that they were kind of interesting. So Coyote first came out through a company, an indie company called Eclipse. But then when that went under, the creators were some big name dudes who were also working at Marvel. So they brought it to a
a brand new imprint, and now that I've started saying this, I forget what the imprint was called at Marvel.
Was it
did
Epic?
a lot of did a lot of the indie, and I'm throwing up quotes here for those that can't see, the indie creators creations, and they brought Steve Englehart was one of the main people. Brought Coyote over to Marvel Epic for a little while for like 16, 18 issues, something like that, and it had like 5 or 6 issues through Eclipse. So.
Elf Quest, the original Quest, that was when it came to Marvel, it was published through Epic.
Right.
Same with Akira.
Yes. Akira. How about from Dark Horse, some Concrete talk?
Okay. I've read a little Concrete.
I've never heard anybody talk about Concrete. Nope. Concrete, the trade paperbacks are available for anybody listening on Hoopla right now. I checked this morning. The John Sable and the Coyote, they don't have anything on Hoopla, but Concrete does.
It's weird that nobody's talking about Concrete. I mean, I'm sure somebody's got to be, but it wasn't
the
like
dude even creating anymore. I don't think he's active anymore.
I don't know. But it wasn't like, it was a 90s book that maybe didn't quite reach the level of Hellboy.
No.
But it was one of the, when you were thinking of Dark Horse in the 90s,
yes,
Concrete was definitely on that list of big titles from Dark Horse in the 90s.
How about the series with the face mask and the dude's name was Ipswich. He'd put on the mask, and
I don't know that one.
Jim Carrey did the movie.
Oh, The Mask. Yeah.
The Mask. Yeah. That was, I think, coming out at the same time that Coyote was. And we see that it got big enough to do that, but Coyote
I just watched that movie.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Rewatch. I watched it in the theater back in the day, but right. I just saw that it was on, I think, Netflix, and that it was leaving in a couple of days. I said, I should watch this because it's been a while.
Just to see it.
Yeah.
And the final thing is probably the farthest out thing, and it just came to mind. It's also on Hoopla right now. How about let's talk about some Flaming Carrot?
Ooh, Flaming Carrot. Never read. I don't know if I've never read Flaming Carrot. I know that that character has probably crossed over with some various characters.
Savage Dragon comes to mind immediately, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
When I read the first couple issues of Flaming Carrot, it very much gave me a similar vibe to the early issues of Madman.
Yeah.
As far as what the creators were trying to do, I thought.
Cool.
Now, Madman he stayed a little bit more mainstream, whereas Flaming Carrot just stayed really weird. Yeah. I mean, it just, So some things that came to mind, again, stuff that I like over the years, and stuff that, as far as I know, I don't hear anybody podcasting about right now. So we would be the authority. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, tell you what, you look at your list, you pick which one you like the best, and that will be our second season.
Okay.
And then I thought it might be fun if I don't know, maybe every once in a while we'll throw, we'll let the listeners pick
list
the
up?
season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. So with all of that being said, today we're going to look at Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, issue number 1 for Marvel Comics. This issue sports a cover date of November 1984, though it hit the stands in August. It sold for just 75 cents, and it is entitled Lies. Now, I find that interesting, because, I mentioned that Kitty Pryde and Wolverine was a 6-issue mini published by Marvel Comics in 1984. If you're looking at only the cover date, you would say 84, 85. Mm-hmm. But as far as when it hit stands, August through December of 84 is when it was released. It was written by Chris Claremont with art by Al Milgrom. The letters were by Tom Orzechowski. The colorist was Glynis Wein. And here's what happened in the story. Kitty Pryde has left the X-Men and traveled to Chicago in order to recover from her breakup with Colossus. She visits her father at his bank, where she learns that he is in trouble with some Japanese businessmen who seem to be criminals and who want Carmen Pryde to meet their boss, Shigematsu, in Tokyo. Kitty stows away on a plane to Japan. However, things quickly go wrong, and she finds herself without money, wanted by the police, and with an impending case of the flu. Just when she is about to confront her father, she gets proof that he intends to allow the criminals to use his bank to launder their money. Ed, what'd you think of this one?
Now, I enjoyed it because of the approaching making me feel now the way I felt when I first read it. When I first read it, this was the absolute shit.
That's good. That's the good shit, not bad shit.
No, yeah, this like it was the I don't know what the kids say nowadays for that, but a couple things came to mind to describe for me where I was when this first came out, and I read it first run, picked it up off of my spinner rack at my Kroger, which is a local grocery store chain here in this whole part of the country, I think. Okay. The great podcaster, Irredeemable Shag, has said, and I don't know if it's him or if he's taken it from somebody, but every comic reader's golden age is 12 years old. When they're 12 years old, that is what they will remember as their golden age.
Oh, wow.
Now, think about that. Now,
I was 84. I was 12 years old.
Okay. Now, I was 12 in 1980. Okay. So if we want to stretch it out and say my golden age was the 10 years of the 80s, that's 12 to 22. So that's middle school, getting into high school where you're getting some freedom, the first couple years of college where you can absolutely, even without reason, do whatever the hell you want because there's nobody watching you, there's nobody saying no, there's no, So that's the time frame. So the 1980s, particularly for Marvel Comics, was absolutely my golden age. And here, let me throw some things out. Power Pack, the comic book, started in actually in 1984 when this came out. The West Coast Avengers miniseries first came out.
Yeah.
Now the cool thing about that was during an Avengers storyline called Vision Quest, whereby, for those of you that don't know, Vision took over every computer system in the world.
Yes,
as a good guy. And that leads directly into the creation and why the Avengers West Coast started for the mini, and then it changed a little bit when they decided to keep it as an ongoing a couple months later and start running.
Let me just break in here real quick, because one of the things that's right in my golden age, and I read West Coast Avengers, and I distinctly remember both Hawkeye and Mockingbird changing up their costumes.
Yes.
So they had short sleeves because it was so hot in LA.
Yep. But yet Iron Man was still there in that iron. So it had to be air conditioned because
definitely.
He had come over from the East Coast and now he was hanging around Malibu, I think is actually where the compound was.
Yeah.
Couple other things. The first Secret Wars came out in 1984.
Yep.
The X-Men Magic miniseries came out in 94. Killer, Kitty Pryde Wolverine, and Magic. Those set up things and use things that we still see today for these characters, that come up. The Thing had his own comic book at the time. It was about halfway through the run. John Byrne Alpha Flight was running. The New Mutants had recently started. So the New Mutants and this period of Uncanny X-Men, of course, Alpha Flight. That was where I was. That's what I was doing. Now, this period of Uncanny X-Men, this is about the time that Rogue came in, and some other dastardly things were happening with the X-Men that we still feel today. A couple other things, books like the Micronauts, ROM, and Marvel Fanfare. Those were all still going on right now. They'd started several years earlier. So all of these books, these are absolute, to me, high points in most of the characters that appeared in this book.
Yeah.
Arguably Secret Wars, but that was other Secret Wars. This first one was awesome. So this is, now there were other things going in the mid-'80s as far as the independents, like those books that I mentioned I'd like to talk about. But whatever. There's Dr. Strange. Hey, Dr. Strange.
Dr. Strange is in the house. For those of you listening who may have never listened to the Superman Super Show, like that podcast with the Comic Book Super Show, we record while we're live streaming. So we will have people throw up comments and whatnot. And sometimes we will just start reading and answering the comments without explaining what we're
out of
doing.
Nowhere. Yeah.
And so, just
but
be
that's why there is a prompt. we don't just have this thing that's like, okay, throw this in now. No,
right.
Somebody
That's
does
part of
something
our
in the
show
comment. Yeah,
It's like Steeven interrupts Ed to point out. Yeah.
Do I mention the comment now, or is that? Oh yeah. Oh, I was early. Sorry. Yeah. No, there's somebody commenting. So this period of time, and not only for me, but I really think that if you looked over the course of the history of the X-Men, the 80s and right now, the mid 80s through the end of the 80s, maybe the early 90s, that's when X-Men just took over the world.
Yeah.
And things like Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, like the Magic miniseries that I mentioned, those are some of the reasons why, as well as the main book itself, which at the time, believe it or not, was only this many. There was one main book.
Uncanny X-Men, yep.
You had New Mutants. That was, even then it was loosely affiliated. It wasn't this, well, to get the whole story, you have to read one issue and then the other issue crossover crap like they do now. No, it was, you knew if you had read either, you knew that the other existed, but it wasn't, you had to read it to understand. It was like, oh yeah, it's related and it's out there, but okay. Alpha Flight, the same way. Wolverine is the main connection to Alpha Flight.
Doc Strange says, glad to finally get to be here. Just finished a recording.
Cool.
This is Billy, right?
Yes. Sorry, Billy. We're not doing Superman this time. I'm not sure if you have read. I would say that you probably read Kitty Pryde and Wolverine back in the day. But if you didn't, stand by, because we're going to tell you all about it.
Yeah.
So that's the golden age. This was in the midst of my comic golden age.
Well, it's interesting that you put it in a block of 10 as well, because 1984 was when I started really officially reading comics.
Okay.
And so if we go 84 to 94, because I have stuff like this, Alpha Flight, all the stuff that you mentioned, but then we jump up to the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider in 1990. That's one of my faves.
If that's your golden age, man, your freaking golden age took in Image when it started.
Right,
That
exactly.
Wow,
yep. And but the first G.I. Joe comic I ever bought, issue number 25, 1984.
Okay.
I read Secret Wars at the time. This here, Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, it's funny because I was basically at this point until my parents allowed me and my little brother to get 2 Marvel subscriptions. I was reading what my brother would let me read. He would go and get his books and he'd let me read stuff. So at one point I had fallen in love with this character, Wolverine, specifically from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Okay.
He was in an episode. He had a small part in the episode. He had an Australian accent for some reason, but he goes up to, I think it was Firestorm. There's a bowl of fruit in front of him. And he goes, "Hey, you want some fruit?" Something like that. And one of his claws comes out and spears an apple. And I just went, that is the coolest superhero I have ever seen in my entire life. And then at one point, my brother said, "Hey, you kind of dug that Wolverine guy, right?" And I said, "Yeah, he's cool." And David was like, "Well, there's a new comic coming out called Kitty Pryde and Wolverine. You should get it. Do you want me to get it for you?" And I was like, "Hell yes." Okay. And this is not only my Kitty Pryde introduction, this is my Wolverine introduction in comic books.
Cool.
And it's funny because I think we're going to gush over a lot of this stuff, and a lot of it is going to come from just nostalgic feelings.
Yep.
And there's a part of me that every once in a while, as I'm reading these, I'm going, what would I have thought about this now? And I try to kick that out of my head because I can't, there's no way for me to imagine that. The nostalgia's too deep. However, we'll talk about this probably when we get into it. The one thing that I will take away from this particular issue that I don't think would have, it wouldn't have gone very far in this day and age is that Wolverine doesn't show up in the issue. Logan is in maybe 2 panels, but he's not in costume.
Yeah.
So Kitty Pryde and Wolverine's not even in the first issue. There's no claws. There's none of that.
Yep.
And really, apart from the few times that Kitty Pryde phases in and out of stuff, there's not really any superhero action in this issue either. And a lot of setup.
A lot of setup.
Yeah. I finished this issue and because, both, like we both said, we both read it back in the day when it was coming out. I read it again a few years back, and then this is probably my third time reading it. And I got to the end of it this time and just went, wait a minute, this would not happen today. Nobody would people would be on the internet just eating this comic alive, and the creators, wow. You got Wolverine on the cover. Why are they not in the book?
Anybody that knows Chris Claremont would not be upset with the way that this started. No. So you would have those people that would be going off and say I was a Claremont fan for a period of time. I would be dismissing those people because I would know that this is the way Chris Claremont writes. And if you're complaining, you obviously don't know that. So go away, noob. Just go, form your own noob group and complain there on your Discord or your Reddit page or whatever. This is Chris Claremont at his thing. This is what Chris Claremont does.
Yep. A lot of words.
Oh yeah,
a lot of words. But,
well, because comic books are for prose. They're not a visual medium. It's a prose outlet.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. All right. Anything else you want to say about it before?
No.
All right. Well, then take us through it, dude.
All right. The first page of the story is a splash page, which is a little different. You get an excellent example of what the art is going to be like for the rest of the book. Definitely, you don't necessarily know, but it turns out for the rest of the series. So, this is Kitty Pryde that we see here, and we actually right off the bat we have an example that she can do something kind of funky because it looks like she's walking out of that tree, which she's not walking out of it. She has phased all the way through it as she's walking. So that's her power. Kitty was introduced into the X-Men probably a couple years before this. Actually, at the same time that Dazzler was introduced into the X universe. Dazzler, I don't know why or whatever, I'm sure there's stories out there, was a part of the story and then just moved to the side, whereas Kitty was a part of the story and was taken in with the group and has been with the group up until you can read current X books. There's 2 X books coming out of the Age of Revelation, and I'm not sure if Kitty's in either one of those yet, but she was in the X books before this latest storyline, Age of Revelation. She had her own book with Emma Frost where they were leading and teaching a group of mutants, kind of like Professor X did for her. So coming out of Age of Revelation, I'm not sure what Kitty's place is going to be. So she's still around. Go ahead.
Well, the issue that she first appears in, the one with Dazzler, I read that over the last couple of years, and the one thing that, if I'm thinking of the same issue, because it's like the X-Men, Scott, Cyclops, and Jean, I think they go to check out the Dazzler situation, whereas Colossus and Wolverine, maybe a couple others, go to Chicago or wherever to check out Nightcrawler to check in on this Kitty Pryde situation. I just seem to remember a panel where Wolverine or Logan, he's not in costume, they're in like a convenience store and he's leaning against a magazine rack, and I think he's reading a Playboy.
Mm-hmm. He's reading an adult title of something,
exactly.
And I think he gets called out by the owner or the worker that hey, we're not a library or something like that, and either he says something or he gives them the claw off or so. The whole That's
but that was John Byrne, Chris Claremont, X-Men, still fairly early in their partnership.
Mm-hmm.
But good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so Kitty is here. She's apparently been doing that most Canadian of all Canadian things, but she's not in Canada. Ice skating on some small piece of water out in the country. Apparently, that's a rite of passage if you're Canadian. Everybody that I know of, Canadian, either real people or celebrities or what have you, they've done this. And then being a hockey fan, apparently you cannot play hockey in later in life if you didn't start playing in the ponds and lakes and whatever of Canada, if you're Canadian. So that apparently that's where all hockey starts for them.
And this is Deerfield, Illinois.
Yes.
So outside Chicago. So Chicago, I think, is kind of a hockey town.
Yes. And I lived in Illinois until I was 7 years old. And I remember that the winters could get pretty nasty, but I don't necessarily remember that they got nasty enough long enough that you could truly do this. Maybe you can. I'm not saying. Yeah. But as a child, I don't remember this. Now, I lived in Chicago, so,
Yeah, this could be north of Chicago, so the farther north you go. And
it's out a little bit. It's not to find bodies of water that freeze. It's certainly not going to be one of the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan, which is what Chicago's on. So anyway, she's been, and you can tell by her gear, she's kind of dressed for that, to have been outside ice skating. Mentions some things, mentions that she's an X-Man. So if you just picked up the book and you didn't know that, there's a connector there. Peter Rasputin, Colossus, there's a connection. She speaks to one of the X-Men at the time. She kind of had a thing for him. This reference here, last week he gave it back. She gave him her heart and he gave it back. Actually, that is only part of the story in X-Men 182, because what actually happened is detailed in the Secret Wars miniseries that I spoke of at the top of the show. Yeah. That is where Colossus met Saji. Don't ask me why. Yeah. Don't ask me why I remember that, but it's written down in there somewhere. She was a healer. She helped him out, overcome some wounds, and apparently that's all it took for Colossus just to puppy dog all about her. Yeah, even though he had Kitty over here in his real world, because that was the whole part of that story was that a bunch of heroes and villains were taken somewhere else, and so they're separated. Actually, what happened is they disappeared. At the end of one issue of the books that they were involved in, all the characters disappeared. At the beginning of the next book, they reappeared. So that's only a month apart. Yeah. But to get that story of where they went, the editor's notes always told you to either see the upcoming or read Secret Wars, and it was a 12 issue. So you had to, they were gone for a month, but they weren't. They were gone in between months. But to find the story, you had to read a whole year's worth of books to fill in that one gap between issue A and then issue B, the next issue. So that was the kind of unique setup. The the two examples I always throw out for that is there's an issue. So there's an issue of Fantastic Four. I think at the end of the issue is when three of them, the Thing, Human Torch, and Mr. Fantastic disappear. Right. Then there is an issue where basically Sue is alone. Okay. She's pregnant, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of that issue, they come back, but they have She-Hulk with them. Yes. And she's now a member of the Fantastic Four. And you're like, when did that happen? And so, you've got to go and then they did this Spider-Man where he leaves one issue with his red and blue costume. Yes, comes back the next issue and he is in his black costume. That's the biggie. There is the alien black costume. But I wanted to point out here, maybe some folks need to fact check me, but I looked this up when we got to this bit here on the splash where they take us down to the editor's note and tell us this happened in X-Men 182. I have a bunch of the Masterworks that I got a long time ago through Comixology. So I went and I looked at 182. It doesn't happen in 182. It happens in 183. Matter of fact, I think it's the opening of 183 with Kitty and Peter sitting on a cliffside or something. Yes, and talking. He's telling her about, he's letting her down. He's not doing it very well. He's hopeless. No. And I mean, Storm ends up bitching at him about it. Yeah. Wolverine definitely here in another issue or two bitches at him about it hardcore. That's... Let me ask you this, because you have more of a X-Men history than I do. One of the things, just to talk about this series as a whole real quick, one of the things that comes out of this is, of course, the relationship between Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, kind of a big brother, little sister type of thing, or maybe uncle, niece type of, it's not a romantic relationship. It's but we see something like that later, like in the 90s with Wolverine and Jubilee. Yes. And I'm curious, is this with Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, this is like the first time we've really ever seen Wolverine in this type of capacity. So that kind of sets that up for Wolverine. Because I know she makes reference at one point, even in this issue, that the first time she met Wolverine, he scared the shit out of her. Yep. Which it was even the case of somebody like, who was it? Angel. Even left the X-Men because of how Wolverine made him feel. He felt that Wolverine was such a loose cannon that he's like, no, I don't want a part of this now. You know, good luck. See ya. And that's Angel, not Apocalypse's Man of War Angel Metal. This is, Angel like he looked in the movie, even though that was a different kid, but that's, so Kitty is, she's been skating here in town. We find out Deerfield, Illinois, which you mentioned, that's her hometown. That's where she was born and raised, as far as we know. And so she's run into some things. She was living in Upper New York. That's where the X-Men are based. Some things happened with Colossus, but also otherwise. And so she's kind of taken a break. She's gone back home, trying to reconnect. I think ultimately really what she's trying to do, she's trying to ground herself. She's 13, 14, 15-year-old, as we've been going through her story in the X-Men. She's a child, but yet she's gone major earth-ending bad guys and evil demons and off-Earth. And I mean, all of these consciousness-expanding kind of things for a middle schooler. I mean, those of us that are parents, I mean, think about our kids in middle school.
Right.
Well, that's when Kitty Pryde is doing all this stuff, you know, and having this weird power that brings her to everybody's attention. And, you know, so she's gone back home trying to recenter. Deerfield, we find out that her mom and dad are separated, which she always took very personally because it happened story time right about the time that she became an X-Man. So she's always felt that was one of the triggers or one of or the last straw or whatever in her parents' relationship, and not as if being an X-Men wasn't a big enough change in her life. Well, now her parents are divorced. On top of that, at the same time. So so here in this story, her mom's not in the picture. She's off doing Mrs. Kitty Pryde things, but her dad is. So her dad is here at Deerfield. She's home, so she's trying to reconnect with dad. Going to his place of business, which is a bank. And in the story, we find out it's a bank that the family has owned, kind of like the bank in the movie where angels get their wings when a bell rings. It's a Wonderful Life, you know. Yep. I imagine that kind of bank established, you know, in the early 1900s by a family, and dad and son and dad and son and dad and son have always just stayed the president of the bank. So she's going to visit her dad, and she notices, dude, there's a big limousine here. In Deerfield, Illinois, this must be a pretty important person. And they're in the bank talking to my dad. So
the Comic Book Super Show will return after these messages.
Hi, I'm Eric, host of the Long Box Review podcast. I love comic books so much that I started Long Box Review to celebrate my love for them and connect with others who share my passion. Each month, I critique the comics I've read and present other topics, such as spotlights on specific issues, my comics history, the Legion Project with Peter Rios, where we discuss the Legion of Superheroes, and so much more. Additionally, the Long Box Review podcast feed includes The Gutters, my audio journal, and Center Seat, my Star Trek podcast. The Long Box Review website also examines comic books outside of the podcast, such as the series 52, Justice, and others. Please join me as I celebrate nearly 50 years of comic book reading and over 15 years of podcasting. You can visit longboxreview.com for more information. And thanks for listening.
Come explore the Hyborian Age and tread the jeweled thrones of Earth with me, Stephen Orr, and the Hither Came Conan podcast. Together we'll look at Conan the Barbarian, the Marvel Comics series that began in 1970, one issue at a time, along with any other Conan comics I can get my hands on. Subscribe to Hither Came Conan now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Enough talk!
And now back to the Comic Book Super Show.
So she goes up and she's going to talk to him and wanks on the door there. And it's like, oh, it's locked. Well, and she looks at the hours and she's like, well, crap, I forgot that this is when the bank closes. I was, playing ice skating for so long. I lost track of time. She's like, yeah, but that's okay. Let me check some things out here. She looks around a little bit and she slides through the door because that's her power. She can phase. She can, scientifically, she can expand the molecules in her body to the extent that the molecules of her body are able to pass through the molecules of another body, another set of molecules. And that's how she phases. Over the years, it's been used a host of different ways. She can extend it to things like you can see right here. She's carrying all her clothes. She's carrying her ice skates, a scarf. Those are external. You might think, well, yeah, if it's touching her skin, she could control it. That makes sense. Kind of like Spider-Man can still climb walls even though he has gloves on. How does that? Yeah. Okay. So here you can see already she can extend the power to other things that are in close proximity to her. Down the road, she's able to do it with people. She can grasp somebody's hand or get somebody to hold on to her, and she's able to do it with, I've seen 3, 4, 5 people just by force of concentration. So she phases in.
One of the things I dig about comics at this time, by the time you're done with this issue, you know everything you need to know. You know what her powers are. You don't you don't need, if you want to go back and read all the X-Men books, starting with the one that she's, started in, it's going to enhance the experience. Right. But from personal experience, having read this is my first X-related title other than Secret Wars.
Right.
Because, I guess I did have Wolverine and Secret Wars. But anyway, that's what I dug about these comics is that by the time, just within the splash page, almost everything you need to know.
Right.
You don't get a full explanation, quote unquote explanation of her powers until, we talked about her phasing. Then they'll talk about the way she kind of floats. They'll talk about that a little later in the issue, but good stuff.
So she phases inside. She checked outside, which it's funny to me or not funny. It's interesting to me. Here we see her. She phases in backwards, as you can see in the panel here. Nowadays, what she would do is she would phase and stick her head through the wall and look around and then walk through. That's how she would typically do something like this nowadays. Looking outside, make sure the coast is clear. Let me phase in and look around to make sure it's clear inside. She didn't do that. In essence, she just walked inside. Fortunately, she walked behind the security guard and not in front of him. And just, spoke to him, waving it off like, hey, I'm here. I'm going to see my dad. See ya. And
because they know each other.
Dude is tripping. He's like, what? I know I locked that door. What the hell's going on? Humor, a little bit of humor. Yeah. She goes on to see her dad. We see that her dad's name is Carmen. He's got the president's tag here on the door. Spent a lot of time on this door, I thought, with all the piping and everything, and then the plaque. And so.
See, that doesn't bother me too much because otherwise, it gives you, I guess, more to look at in the panel. Yeah. Could it, if it was just your plain brown door, it might almost have been just a little bit too, it's not too over the top and it's not boring. So, yeah.
No. So she goes up to the door and just as she's about to enter, she stops because she can hear people inside talking. And she hears things like extremely awkward position. I've already explained. Our proposition is most reasonable. I won't do it. Consider the alternative. You can't force me. And then the telling sound of flesh on flesh slap. You can't force me. Slap. And she cries out. And I guess I would, what I know of Kitty, even at this time, she would have just phased right in when she heard her dad being assaulted, which is what she assumes is going on. But before she can even do that, the door is opened and this big sumo dude with a top knot stops her. A little bit of back and forth. She wants to see her dad. My impression is that she probably brushed by him. The way that it's drawn, he had kind of stepped aside, but nothing in their conversation happened that would motivate him to step aside. He doesn't know that it's okay to let her in. So I imagine that she just brushed past him.
He's asking, shall I remove her? And the other
After
guy
he's
says,
already let
allow
her in.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
true.
I mean, all of this would have gone on up here when he's blocking the door. I mean, so she goes into her dad's office and we see, what is that? 5 men. One is her dad. And the other 4 dudes, we can assume, must have been who, at the very least, some number of them, if not all of them, must have come in the limo that she passed outside. So they're the big sumo, and it's not necessarily fair to describe him as sumo other than the fact that I know the story and what's going to happen. I mean, when you first see him, you're not going to assume that he's a sumo. It's going to stand out that he's got a top knot. And
he's big.
Every time I say top knot, I keep trying to think of what that is called in Japanese, but I can't remember. But he's dressed in a 3-piece suit. So there's nothing about him really that says sumo. He's big, 3-piece suit. For that matter, you look at somebody like Wilson Fisk, the character. He's a sumo wrestler. He's a martial artist. Sumo is the art that he practices. Most people have no idea. They just think he's a big overweight dude. And it's like, well, yeah, he's overweight, but it's a controlled overweight. And this is why. I don't know that he still in Marvel continuity practices sumo, but originally that's why he was big the way he was, because he was a sumo wrestler. So the whoever's in charge says to the doorman, whose name is Shumai, to let her in. So she immediately goes to her dad, is talking a little bit back and forth. She notices that he's bloody a little bit. Speaking of the names that you said, there's a name here that is dropped. The dude that told Shumai to let her in, Carmen, refers to, he says, leave her out of this, Ogun. Now, my Caucasian tongue pronounces that Ogun.
Yep.
I believe that it probably is more accurately pronounced Ogun, like O-O-N in English, Ogun.
I believe you're correct because I feel like I looked that up at some point.
So I'm going to continue to say Ogun because quickly that's what my eyes see, but I don't believe that that's correct. I don't know for sure.
Well, it's kind of like, I think it's spelled the same as Shogun.
Does Shogun have the squiggly
I think it has
over
the line. I think it does. I think.
Okay. Shogun? I've always heard that pronounced Shogun.
Yeah, so have I. That's why I don't.
If that's Shogun, that's interesting.
Somebody will need to fact check that for me too.
Okay, so and here's a pretty standard '80s ad here that we see in the book that I'm looking at. But
we'll get to the ads later.
So she notices that the slap that she heard probably was the fact that her dad was hit. His cheek is red. He's bleeding a little bit out of the corner of his mouth, just like somebody gave him a backhand. Probably the big dude, since he's the muscle, he was told to straighten him up and make him fly right.
We call that giving somebody a fresh one.
A fresh one. Okay. I just call it a backhand. So,
yeah.
And then for the first time here in this right-hand panel of the top of the page, we see all 4 of the men. Nothing really outstanding about them. One's got a fedora and dark glasses on, even though it's inside. It kind of stands out. The one all the way over to the right is smoking a cigarette through one of those big, long French tubey things, whatever those are called. I don't know.
I think it's just a cigarette holder.
That is the gentleman who is Ogun. Ogun is the last dude. He will be pretty pivotal for the rest of the story.
Yep.
You don't necessarily get the feel of that from the first issue at all, really. There's his connection is used kind of at the end of this issue, so you realize that, well, maybe he's a big thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be big for the story. But
when I like what Kitty has to say about him, in her head here at the bottom of the page. But introduce the dudes, and then we can talk about that.
The big dude, Mr. Shumai, is their bodyguard. This is coming from Carmen, directed at Kitty. Mr. Delano, the dark glasses dude, and Mr. Walsh, the standard Aryan representative here with the blonde hair and the light skin. And he is the typical white guy right here, this dude. So he probably, of the 3 so far, he's probably the nastiest because he's going to act normal, but when you turn around, he'll hit you with a paperweight and just kill you, and he won't care. Delano and Walsh are part of the North American management team. So And Mr. Ogun is from the main office, and that's the dude with the smoky thing. And he says, it's a great pleasure to make your acquaintance, Miss Pryde. And I'm sure in a Japanese tinting.
Yeah. And they all work for a corporation that recently purchased the bank. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's no longer a family bank.
Which she's really surprised about because, like she said, it has been in the family since, what'd she say, her dad's grandfather? Or her grandfather?
Dad's great-grandpa founded it.
Yeah, so it's her dad, grandpa, great-grandpa, and dad's great-grandpa. So that's 6 generations, counting Kitty, she's not in the bank, but still. Yeah, so that's, what is that, 5 generations, and a generation is roughly 20 years? So is that 100 years?
Yeah,
quickly?
Something like that.
Yeah, 18 to 20, I think, is a generation. Another ad here for, I won't go into it.
Well, I want to talk about real quick what
Steven told me I can't, so.
We'll talk about the ads at the end.
Okay.
Don't want to mess with the flow, dude.
Oh.
Not that there's a flow. But anyway, I did want to say real quick, here at the bottom of this page, what she has to say in her head about Ogun. He's saying, it's a very great pleasure to make your acquaintance, Miss Pryde. And the narration box is her thoughts. I'll bet, she says, Ogun's eyes linger on mine. And my first instinct is to run away and hide. I suddenly remember how scared I was the first time I met Wolverine. Without a word being said, I'd known instinctively what he was. Ogun's the same. So that's a bit of foreshadowing, pretty much.
Telling of the character. I guess you would assume that she knew that Wolverine was a killer, I guess is where she's going.
Yeah.
A little bit more than like just a hard case, because I don't think really anybody has ever described Wolverine as just being a hard person. It's always some animalistic, feral kind of feeling that they get. So I assume that is maybe even almost sociopathic, we would call that now.
Got the eyes of a killer.
So Carmen tells her that they want, the 4 gentlemen want Carmen to meet the head of the company that just bought the bank. And Kitty's like, oh, well, okay, you can, go ahead and take care of your business and I'll just head on home and wait for you there. The men find that funny because, come to find out, no, we're going to take him to Japan because that's where we're from. He's going to meet the head of the company that bought the bank there, do some business there, and then he'll be back. So we're talking like days, maybe weeks, not, pat child, they're there, not a couple hours, She takes offense at that because they're laughing at her, and then that's where Carmen explains, well, this is the situation that I just explained. And then she, trying to cover up embarrassment, she says, oh, silly me. But then to herself, she says, well, what do I do now? Because she realizes that this situation is not right.
Yeah, she lets him go. He may not come back.
Her X-Men training is like, I need to do something because this situation is not right. What can I do? What do I do? Now they're going to leave the country. What can I do? What do I do? So any time remotely that Kitty has had to do stuff like that, it's always been in the company of the X-Men. They have done it, and she has been a part of that. So figuring out how to do something like this completely by herself on her own is not really anything she's a middle school age child. I mean, you don't think about how, if Wolverine was in her place, he'd already have it figured out. He'd know who to talk to. He'd know where he was going to go. He'd know, everything. This side, the Japan side, what he needed to do. And, she has no clue. And it kind of shows in ultimately the way that she follows her dad. It's like, you really don't know what you're doing, do you? You're putting this together as you go. Just, here, let me take a couple steps and figure something out, and a couple more steps and figure something out.
Which is another great thing about comics back then, is that there is a lot of there's a lot of space in this issue taken up with the missteps of just from her trying to get from here to there and all the crap. I mean, that's pretty much the rest of this issue. And it's
right.
It doesn't need to be there, but it helps. It makes the story deeper to know that she's not just somebody who can leap into the situation and take care of it. She's going to mess up often. And she certainly does in this first issue.
For this series, though, that is particularly important.
Yeah.
Not just for the storytelling kind of thing. That would definitely fall into the character development that people like to throw out. But the whole point of this issue is to develop Kitty's character from point A that we're seeing here and through the rest of the issue to point B, which is where she winds up at the end of the story. So this story is very much about that journey rather than just being, well, we'll just use this to work on Kitty for a little while. It's like, no, the whole point of the story was Kitty and a character growth, character change that she is going to undergo, along with, but also with the assistance of Wolverine, since he's on the masthead of the book, you would assume that he must do something. Doesn't do much in this first issue, but he does later on. It's this story, this character of Ogun, come up again and are used by other creators throughout the X-Men from this time moving forward. Yeah. The change in Kitty's character of the story, definitely, but Ogun, the concept of what happens and some things that comes out about Wolverine is referenced again. And so, I mean, this is I don't necessarily know at the time, which I don't ever know that at the time they consider doing something that will be used in the future. Sometimes they do. But this stuff, after Claremont laid this down on paper, definitely was used multiple times, both by him and other creators, most successfully by him because it's his stuff. But so Carmen is going to go see Shigematsu-san, who is the boss of the men, the boss of the company that bought the bank. So that's who he's going to see. I don't know why it was necessary to drop his name, but they did here, and it'll give us something to track and see if that name ever pops up again. I mean, so.
Yeah.
So, Kitty at first is like, well, going to Japan will be cool. I've never been to Japan. And she's going on and on and on. And her dad's like, nope, cut it off for it. No, go home. I'm going to do this. And he gets kind of snippy with her and says, what is the word? I'll brook no further discussion. Okay. That's, not sure that that's language that we hear much nowadays, but so he cuts her off, talks her down from her having a good time. I get to go with you ledge, right? Gives her some stuff, gives her a note for the housekeeper to explain where he is and gives her some money so that she can get cab fare to the airport and get a ticket to go back to New York.
Bill from Long Island is joining us.
Bill from Long Island. I'm sorry. Yeah, with the thumb.
Hey, Bill.
Hey,
we got
Bill.
two
Glad to hear you.
Bills.
Yep.
Two Bills watching right now.
We're rich men. Why? Because we have two Bills.
Especially if they were $200 bills.
So he's trying to get her to protect her. Go with your friends, the X-Men, which he still really doesn't know a whole lot about.
I don't. I
over
get the
time
impression
that will change, but
I get the impression that, and maybe I'm wrong, but he doesn't even know that she has powers. Is that true?
No.
Okay.
At this time, he does not. You're
okay.
Nor does he know, anything about the X-Men at all.
As far as he knows, it's just a school for gifted youngsters.
Right. She has made friends there. I would assume this must be like over some kind of holiday because nothing comes up about her not being in class.
Yeah.
So maybe this is this time of year, the Christmas, New Year, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year period where whether you have to be at school or not is kind of slushy. And so it just,
Yeah, I know that there's a future because, you say all the time, your big thing is that continuity is your reward for reading all the comics. And, we got the mention at the opening of the episode or the issue that with Peter handing her heart back to her and that reference Secret Wars. So there's some continuity right there. But there's at one point, it may be even in the next issue when we get to it, but they do make mention of all the snow in Japan at the time, and it's because of what was happening in the Thor comic at the time.
Oh, with the Casket of All Winter?
Yes.
And how it got started. Yeah. Back in the days, when the Marvel Universe was one place.
Yeah, when it felt like one place.
You know, you don't have to do a whole lot to do that. It doesn't take much. But people nowadays are like, oh, screw that. I'm going to do whatever I want. Look, all you got to do is mention that you read this in the paper or you saw this on the news or something. No.
Back before everything was put into their own little silos, the X-Men part, the Spider-Man part, the Avengers.
Today's second or third generation fanfic writers just absolutely refuse to integrate these different aspects of the Marvel Universe. It makes it much less fun. Trust me, guys, if you were reading the books at the time, seeing these little connectors were so cool. In a Spider-Man book, as he's swinging by, seeing the people on the ground looking up at somebody else flying by behind him, you know, Johnny Torch, Johnny Storm, I mean, or Thor, or, you know, who knows? Because it's common knowledge that the Fantastic Four exist. It's common knowledge that the Avengers exist and that people like Thor and Captain America are members. You're not squishing on Spider-Man by saying, on the other side of town is Avengers Mansion, and they're there. They can't even do stuff like that. They're so focused on making their mark on this character. I can't do anything. And it's like, okay.
Yes, that's a huge part of it. There's also, I think that some of the stuff that they write are probably written, you know, you had the bullpen at this point. So they knew what was going, they had, the editors communicated, they knew what was going on in the world, but a 6-issue story arc that may be going on in Captain America right now may have been written a year ago, you know, and they didn't know what the rest of the, I don't know.
Okay.
But still,
maybe.
It felt a lot. It felt like one world back then. And it was nothing. You'd see Spider-Man in a, you know what? I think the thing that got me was recently learning that at some point in the 70s or 80s, frickin' Cyclops was dating Misty Knight.
Right, yeah.
You know, it's like, what? And that just blew
Misty
my
Knight
mind.
And Jean Grey were best friends.
Yeah, that blew
at the time.
Yeah, they were like roommates or something. I don't know.
They were
blew
roommates.
my mind. Bill from Long Island says, despite all the big crossover events, it does feel less connected in regular storylines. Yep, certainly
that's
does.
Because even using the word crossover, it's very insular.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, the X people just had a crossover that finished up called Age of Revelation. I did not see any other characters that I can remember, and I read way too many of those books because they were very poorly done. To connect anything, you know, it's like, so only the X-Men exist in this that we're seeing. There are no other, you know, and it's like, no, that's virtually impossible. They exist now. Some of them would have to exist then. I think that's the case. Somebody out there who also has read Age of Revelation, remind me, there may have been references to other characters, like maybe somebody was carrying around Captain America's shield. Maybe. Yeah. But it wasn't Captain America or a Captain America. It was a mutant that had the shit. Yeah. So, and there's, now that I say that, there's a reason why potentially it would have been a mutant. But anyways.
You know, think of the fall of the mutants. Think of that crossover. You know, there was a Daredevil issue that was a Fall of the Mutants tie-in. You know, dealing with all
Onslaught.
Yeah.
That completely took the Avengers and the Fantastic Four and Captain America and Iron Man off the board, freaking out of the Marvel Universe completely. They died. They were gone.
Yeah.
You know, and that was predominantly an X-Men story. It heavily involved the Avengers for a couple reasons, but at the end of the storyline, other major heroes were gone because of that storyline. Yeah. That is, you know, wow. They wouldn't dare do that stuff now. Too many creators would be pissed off, and you know.
That's part of it. Creators being pissed off, and it's just too much effort.
Yeah,
too much effort to try to tie everything together.
I don't want to even go into that with AI and whatever. Okay. So, Carmen finally talks Kitty down off of her I want to go with you ledge. She seemingly says, okay, I'll do as you ask, and I'll go back to my friends, and I'll take the note to the housekeeper, you know, and I'll take care of all of these little things related to the fact that you're just going to go with these dudes, jump on a plane and go to Japan out of nowhere, seemingly. So they take off. Another cool ad. No, I got to stop.
Bill from Long Island says, I wonder if the reason is editorial, not the writers being protective of their domains. I think it's both.
Well, you say that, Bill, but a lot of times I wonder about if editorial even exists at times for even these intra-family things that happen. It's like, well, you're not even controlling what goes on in your bailiwick. How are you going to control what goes on between bailiwicks, right? Yeah. So it's, well, and the whole thing gets down to the fact that the current crop, and it's been at least one generation, maybe two generations ago, that continuity just was thought to be an absolute, utter, total hindrance. We need to get rid of continuity. And if you say continuity, you're just some kind of gatekeeping asshole that just wants to, forget continuity. And so that's the way a lot of things are created nowadays in the mainstream books. Now, if you want to refer to something, you as the creator, go ahead. I don't think they're going to stop you. But any type of we need to do this is completely gone from the uppermost levels down to the writers and artists. I see more continuity in books that I buy off a Kickstarter than I do out of somebody like Marvel or DC. So, and
I think about, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think about Secret Wars that was coming out at this time. And I remember reading that Jim Shooter saying, he wrote somewhere that the reason why he ended up writing Secret Wars is because he knew, he'd get a lot of trouble if he asked any of the other writers, because
handling this writer handling my character, I don't
exactly. Yeah. That's exactly.
So the dog that was in charge was like, "Hey, it's cool.
Fuck it, I'll
write all y'all characters. That's it. That's not
and
a problem.
If you don't like it, you can kiss my ass because I'm your boss.
You can go to the distinguished competition and get you a job. That's fine. And I apologize. I have very firm feelings about continuity and the way that it's used or not used nowadays. And I've mentioned it a couple times. Anybody out there who has not, if you have an occasion to read this most recent X-Men crossover, Age of Revelation, don't just forget it. It's not good. The main book itself, which is about 6 issues, is okay because it deals with some heavy hitters and some interactions and things that may be used down the road. All of the peripheral, like 20 or 25 3-issue miniseries that there were, just stack them up over there and use them to heat your house this winter. They're poo. Yeah. So she watches her dad leave. Kitty does. And then she immediately runs out and gets her own taxi, and goes to the airport. Nice reference here. O'Hare Airport. That's the main airport in or in the suburbs of Chicago. Big international airport. So already we see that she has said one thing and she's kind of doing something else. I mean, you would expect her to go to the airport to go to New York.
Yeah.
Okay. But she said she was going to go to the housekeeper and let the housekeeper know that he was not coming back. She didn't do any of that. She didn't try to call, didn't do anything. Immediately went to the taxi, immediately going to the airport to try to follow her dad, we find out. A couple images here of the airport, not badly rendered, enough to let you know that that's what it is. I am not familiar enough with O'Hare to know how accurate this is. Somebody else would have to jump in.
Yeah. I've been there a couple of times, but not enough for it to sink into my memory.
I think maybe my dad and I flew out of O'Hare because from the age of birth to 7, I lived in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I do know the building where the Blues Brothers ended. I am familiar with that building. Yeah.
I stood outside that building.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a different podcast.
There was a big fence around it. They were doing some kind of construction, so we couldn't get to it. But I looked through some slats and I was like, oh my God, that's a Cook County courthouse.
Yeah.
I can see all the cop cars and stuff.
That's where the cars, yeah. So Kitty's looking, and we find out that she is looking for a plane to Japan. Lo and behold, from Chicago, she does find a red eye. Chicago's an international airport. It's not surprising. surprising would be that she found one in her time frame. So it's a red eye, straight to. So now she goes about getting on the plane, still carrying around her skates. They're her favorite skates, we find out.
Yeah.
And her the scarf that she has on. Has she lost the hat? Nope, she's still wearing the little tumbler kind of hat. It's hard and sets up about 2 or 3 inches. I know that people have seen, predominantly women wear them. They look like a box hat. And so that's what she's got on. Her favorite skates and a big scarf, as well as her outfit. But the other things, the hat, scarf, and skates are like ancillary, but yet she manages to keep up with them no matter where she's going, as we see her phase through an employees-only door to get to the luggage part of the airport, the luggage area. She phases into one of the luggage containers, which this is interesting. I just watched another movie last weekend, I think, where somebody smuggled on a plane and they didn't use containers. It was just, since we're such a fan of the word raw, it was just raw luggage that was thrown on this thing, and it was taken out to a plane, and the raw luggage was just thrown into the underbelly of the plane.
That's what I've always seen on any other media. And so when I'm reading this, I'm like, well, that makes logical sense. Why wouldn't all airports do this?
Exactly. This is more like today's international moving of merchandise in the big container boxes.
Yep, big container
Only
ships,
they're doing it for smaller for luggage on an airplane, Yeah. So she gets into one of those boxes and waits them out. They load it in the plane. She makes mention that she's got to be careful. The luggage is unsecured in the box, so it still is throwing around and everything. And if she's trying to hide under or in between the gaps or whatever, this crap is moving all around. It's easy for her. She can just phase and it'll pass through her, but she doesn't want to phase so much that she phases through the container, through the airplane, and out into the middle of the air as the plane is flying. That's a very valid concern. Also, to me, now would be a concern that this is getting into physics a little bit more, but she's in a giant tube, right? An airplane. And she is solid, and the tube is moving. Everything inside is moving fundamentally at the speed that the tube is moving, right?
Yep.
That's how that whole concept works. Okay, if you phase and become unmaterial, does that change your speed? And the plane would just whoosh right past you, because all of a sudden you're standing still. You've held yourself still while the plane moves around you. So it's quasi addressed here, but not in that form.
Yeah.
She just continues having to be careful as she is moving and finding a hiding place and what have you on the plane, that she doesn't get too close to the outer skin of the plane and phase herself out. But my thought is, as soon as you came immaterial, okay, think of the Matrix movie. 3, maybe? The 2 twin fighter dudes that turn into smoke while they're sitting in the car, and by turning into smoke, the car zooms past them, and then they're standing there, and then they solidify behind them because it's like, well, if you so.
See, I almost understood it that, I mean, she does mention that if she phased out of the ship, she wouldn't know what speed she'd be going. So that makes me feel like she's saying that she'd still be going the speed of the plane.
Okay.
But I also kind of got the idea that there is a degree, there's like a certain degrees to her phasing. Like she's phasing just enough to get through the stuff that's around her. But if she really turns it on full power, boom, the whole plane's gone. And she's out in the middle of the sky.
Because not in this book so much, but in other books, she has talked about her phasing feels like she's walking through mud or doing that.
Yeah.
So like you said, there's different amounts of phasing that she can do, like completely non-corporeal, like our thought of a ghost, or it's like just enough to let material pass through. Yeah. So
Doc Strange, Billy D says the only bigger faller.
Yeah, okay.
The only bigger folly than trying to understand women is trying to understand comic book science.
Well, no, not completely. I mean, I understand. You have to. What is it? You have to suspend disbelief in order to really be able to take advantage of enjoying these things. And for the most part, I do. But I guess my wondering is more in the real world. If this stuff were real, it would these different things happen. And I'm a biology major, so and actually I'm a geology major, so I have 2 degrees in the hard. I call them hard sciences, and I still don't know that I can explain this one way or the other. Yeah. I'm not even. Maybe if I were a physics major, maybe I could explain it. I don't know, but anyway.
Well, think about it like this: if you've got an airplane, right? It's going through the air, whoosh. The air around it kind of moves the air around it as it's going through, right?
Sure.
So you could say that so you could say that the air around it won't match the speed of the plane, but it kind of pushes some of the air along with it. And so if she phases, she's basically as light as air. She'd still be kind of pushed along to a certain extent. She'd still, I think, phase out of the plane, but I think she'd still be going forward, just not as quite as fast as the plane. So the plane would go boom, and she'd be behind it, but still kind of going forward a bit.
Now there you're
slowing down.
You're talking more along the lines of like drafting, like race cars do, or itty bitty cars will do behind tractor trailers on the highway and stuff like that, because of the air envelope and where the air that they're braking comes back together. There's a space here that if you can fit in, you get pulled along with whatever the object is. Yeah, something like that is possible. Or it could be that it's like, no, she would absolutely fall out of the plane and fall down, but we're not going to discuss it because it's a comic book. It's
right.
Okay, I'm okay with that. So she gets in the plane. She's phasing around. She phases out of the luggage mini tube in the giant tube of the airplane and starts phasing around looking for a place where she can light and be a little bit more comfortable. She mentions being careful not to hit any, and I don't know how she knows, any electrical systems, because her phasing, we do know of the character, if you've read her before, that her phasing disrupts electronics. She has shut things down. She has defeated bad guys and whatever, simply by phasing through the mechanical electronic things that they have.
Bill from Long Island says no reason to believe that a change of vibration frequency changes inertia. She was moving at airspeed. Changes frequency still at air.
And I definitely understand. You're right. Yeah.
Changes frequency still at airspeed. I didn't quite finish that sentence.
Right. Even though she is vibrating differently, those vibrations are still going at the same speed she was at the other vibrations. So and I can't say no for any particular reason. So yeah, that's quite possible.
I have a whole podcast dedicated to comic book science.
Is there not one? I think once upon a time, I think there was one where they would.
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Talk about comic book science. Actually, I think was the name of the show, but I don't know if it's still active or not.
The Comic Book Super Show will return after these messages. Hey there, comic fans and children of the 80s. My name is Steeven, and I would like to invite you to join me on another G.I. Joe podcast. If you grew up yelling, "Yo, Joe!" or flipping through dog-eared issues of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, this is the show for you. Each episode, we're tackling one issue of the classic Marvel comic series, starting all the way back in 1982. We'll break down the stories, the artwork, the characters, the wild twists, the covert missions, everything that made this series one of the most surprisingly rich comic runs of the decade. We'll follow the rise of Snake Eyes, the schemes of Cobra Commander, the battles, the vehicles, the ninjas, the chaos, and the totally over-the-top, totally awesome storytelling that defined 80s action. Whether you're reliving your childhood or discovering these comics for the first time, I'm here to guide you through it all with excitement, insight, and plenty of nostalgia. So grab your gear and join the team, because the mission begins now. Yo, Joe! And And now back to the Comic Book Super Show.
So she goes up to the main or one of the main floors, because this plane probably has multiple floors. Back somewhere where, of course, this is absolutely not what you would find today. But she finds a section that doesn't have people, and she just crawls up in a seat and falls asleep, which is interesting. She had to know that it's only a matter of time before she gets caught. I mean, there's not going to be a part of the plane where the people are that is not patrolled for one reason or another by people. But so she crawls up over, away from everything and falls asleep. Sure enough, she's awakened by a stewardess. Is it fair to still call them that?
They would have been called stewardesses back then.
Or a hostess, although I don't know what the male people are called. Are they a hostess too? Yeah, I don't, whatever. I don't know. Just be sure that you get the pronoun right. Anything after that doesn't matter, but just get the right pronoun, because that's what the world revolves around. Sorry, that offended everybody.
They would have. They also were referred to shortening the stewardess as stews. Flight attendant, as Bill from Long Island points out. Yeah, that's what they're
flight
we refer them to
there
nowadays. Yeah.
Yes. So it's not a hostess so it just takes the gender completely out of it, and it's a gender non-specific, kind of like dude. To me, dude is a gender non-specific kind of reference.
Yeah, yep.
Dude. Sup, dude? So she wakes up, and she is she's kind of confused. I guess she kind of lost track of where she was and what she was doing in her sleep. Who knows? She probably dreamt of something much more fun and enjoyable than what she's trying to do now, which is smuggle her whole ass from the U.S. to Japan, which is quite the accomplishment. She does give the stewardess some of a story, because the stewardess, the two main questions, how did you get aboard? And, oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought she asked her about her outfit. That comes up somewhere else. And is this some sort of schoolgirl prank? Is that something that, like, college-age girls do? They smuggle on airplanes or something? I don't know. So Kitty tells her, like, a half-truth, She tells her the physicalness, but not any of the motivation as to what she is doing. So, and leaves it there. The flight attendant, thank you, Bill. I've got that right here, so I can look up and make sure that I use the most agreeable term. Says that, well, you can stay, but of course I'm going to have to go tell the pilot. And dude, anytime you tell the pilot, that means that officials on the plane, officials on the ground, everybody's going to get involved. So now Kitty's time is even more limited as far as doing something, because the official people who you don't want to know. So now they'll be watching her, trying to track her. Yeah.
Yeah. They will detain her as soon as they land.
Oh, yeah. Nowadays, you would be detained on the plane, I would imagine.
Especially if there's an air marshal aboard.
Yeah, I was going to say they're called air marshals, I guess, now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the plane does land. The stewardess goes back to secure Kitty.
Bill from Long Island says the days before TSA were wild.
You could get away with a lot more stuff.
Could just sneak on a plane.
Exactly. Yeah. And the stewardess sees that Kitty is gone. So for the first 2/3 of the page, we see it from the the flight attendant's point of view. And then the final panel, we see from Kitty's point of view what she did to get out from under having been found. And that is just phase the hell through everything. Just shrink yourself and just right through the plane until she hits the ground. Now, she does that, and some of the people working on the plane, she drops down right into the middle of them. So she's not completely unfound. They just don't necessarily know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
We find out a little bit later, or maybe through this section. I forget where we find out. Well, we find out that Kitty is fluent in Japanese. Yes. I would be interested in what she heard them saying as she just popped out of nowhere, runs through their midst, and runs off across the tarmac. It's not going to be what Americans think and say. Very different culture. So politely, what are these Japanese attendants saying that
whatever the Japanese version of what the fuck,
which I guess could be what the fuck, but maybe not, So these couple panels, that's all I'm thinking. I'm wondering, man, what are they saying? What are they saying? Well, it's not that it matters at all, but yeah. So she hides. Law enforcement or airport police, terminal police, whichever come, they're looking for her. Obviously got word from the captain, who would have radioed ahead, hey, we got a stowaway here, so we need somebody to be ready, when we touch down. Plus now the flight crew that she surprised, they're witnesses also. So she is starting to leave a bigger and bigger trail as she's, from the moment she got on the plane until she is touched down here in Tokyo, her trail has become larger and larger as far as people knowing and everything like that. So maybe not too many on the American side of the things, but now on the Japanese side of things, there are people all over the place that want to talk to her, are actively looking for her, everything like that. So the amount of eyes trying to find her are growing almost exponentially as she is just attempting to find a place to light and let things die down for a little while. So more she tries to do that, the harder it's getting for her to do that. She smuggles on a bus, does phase into the bus, and in doing so, hits one of the other travelers, who then turns and chastises her in Japanese, because they have little brackets. And this is where we learn. Is this where we learn? Yeah, this is where we learn that she is fluent in Japanese. A trip there with the X-Men and Professor X pounded Japanese into everybody's head so that they could converse natively, which
that's a good deal.
Maybe is one of the cooler things that Professor X does. He turns out to be quite a skeeve the longer he goes. But yeah, that would be like, I could take that with me. I can, So, so now she is in Tokyo. She's wandering around trying to find something somewhere. She's been here, but at the time she was there, it was not to pay attention to what she was doing. She was,
plus she was with all the other X-Men. So
I do know that when they first came back from Secret Wars, they popped up in Japan because they fought a dragon there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's before or after this starts, because there have been other times that they have been Japan. They went to Japan looking for Logan at one point. They went to Japan looking for Aurora, for Storm, but I believe that's after, not much, but a couple years after this. So
would she have been in the X-Men when because I know that the Wolverine 4-issue mini ends with the wedding invitation that the X-Men get.
That's right around this time, the 170s, 180s, I think is when that. Now, I don't know for sure, because in the books that I looked at for 1984, the Wolverine miniseries was no issue of that.
It's
came
like
out in
82 or something. Yeah.
Okay, so it's about the same time. So there's a lot of story reasons why she may have been in Japan. I can't remember necessarily when they all occurred.
And it didn't give us an editor's note. You think they would have said, when she said, when I first visited Japan with the X-Men, we would have gotten an editor's note that would have said, that was X-Men. In X-Men, blah, 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 true believers,
Yeah. Japan for the X-Men is one of probably my two favorite settings ever. I've always liked when they go to Japan, the characters that they meet there, the stories that they have there. I've always enjoyed Japan.
Chris Claremont's very much a, what do they call that? An otaku, fan of Japanese and Japanese culture.
All right. So she decides, Ogun, she remembers that name, and she remembers somebody named Shigematsu. She doesn't know the name of the company, but she remembers his name. So she's going to try and assume that his company bears his name on the phone, calling information. And she does get a hit. Those of us that do computer work, of course, she gets a hit. And it's a part of Tokyo that's just a couple of train stations away from where she is. And it is my understanding that a lot of Japan directions, or Japanese directions in total, are based on train station and which one, because that's the predominant form of travel. And so if you go from point A to point B, it's going to be by train. And so you'll need to know where the stations are. So that's what everybody knows is such and such station. And then it's like, well, it's just 3 blocks west of such and such. Oh, okay. Well, I know where to start. And then, yeah. So
that's like New York. Take the subway to this stop, and then you're 3 blocks to the west or something like that.
Yeah. She gets to the building, and it's a very, very large building, meaning that Shigematsu, is that his name? Must be pretty rich, because if he has had the building built, that was my assumption when I saw it. There's a kanji or a Japanese letter, maybe it looks like, at the top of the building. I think maybe that's what that's supposed to be. I'm not sure, other than just some SWA Nike semi symbol. I think maybe they're alluding to the fact that maybe that's a letter. Maybe that's an S. Shigematsu is the maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. On top of everything else, it's starting to rain as she's trying to run around Tokyo, find, get directions and find places. And now she definitely needs to find a place to light because it's going to start raining, and it's nighttime. And
she's still in her skating outfit. She's still carrying her skates. She's still got her scarf. Yeah,
yep. She's still's got all her stuff. And we find out that she did have $4 and change on her, and a couple sticks of gum and a set of keys because she checks her pockets. And actually, we see that the gum is juicy fruit. So in 1984, we all would have been familiar with juicy fruit gum. Well, I'm still familiar with juicy fruit gum now, but that's So I would have picked like Bubble Yum or Bubblicious or one of those. But
yeah,
okay.
Big League Chew.
Yeah, starts raining. Did you say Wrigley or Big League?
Big League Chew.
Bigly in the pouch, just like the tobacco. So you get a big bubble gum and you seal up the pouch. And
you couldn't play Little League and not have a pouch of Big League Chew on you at all times.
You know what I haven't had in a while? Big League Chew.
You're in the big leagues.
Big league flavor.
When you make a perfect slide. You're in the big leagues.
Big league pouch.
When you keep the team alive. You're in the big leagues.
Big league shreds.
When you block a shot or two. You're in the big leagues.
Big league flavor.
You're into Big League Chew.
Big league chew. Fan-sized wads of great taste and shredded bubble gum stuffed into a giant Stay Fresh pouch.
You're in the big leagues.
Big league flavor and big league bubble.
You're into Big League Chew.
Looks like they got Big League Chew.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw they got Big League Chew.
So she goes into the building. Let's see, does she phase in? Actually, she does a couple things. We find out here another aspect of her power that you alluded to earlier. She can phase and do what she calls airwalk. And she can't float per se, but she can take a step up. So whereas we would, and all of you that will listen to this as a podcast, none of you will get the enjoyment of seeing my finger man on the camera. But as you know, we walk in a straight line, the force and with physics, whatever. Well, what she does is she can step up and pull herself upright and step out at the same time, like you're doing stairs, only there's no stairs. She can do that in the air because she's phased. So she calls that airwalking. So
that's totally gonna be lost for people who couldn't see his.
Yeah, it's like walking on invisible stairs. A staircase is what you.
I'm just
joking.
Her
own manufacture. Yeah, no, it was very entertaining. My little man.
I loved it.
Yeah, and this is also in the Golden Age. This is how Dr. Fate flew. He was always drawn doing this upright when he flew. This is how
I
he
didn't
flew.
know that. Cool.
You know, Superman, of course, starts to get to the point where he flies like this. No. Dr. Fate always waggled his legs as he flew. I could never understand that. Yeah. I always noted it and thought it was one of the goofiest things I remember seeing from the Golden Age.
The Golden Age.
So she picks a room. She doesn't look or anything. She just picks a window and faces through it. Lo and behold, there's nothing here that indicates she knows where it is or anything. But the office does have a couch, so she crashes on the couch. Really? We have seen no indication of what time it is. She does mention being jet lagged, but we have no idea how long she's going to have to lay on that couch. Might be just an hour before the workday start or whatever. You know, interesting choice here. I think this maybe is a choice that doesn't necessarily follow the best logic, but it does advance the story. And so that's what we're doing.
It feels more of a desperate choice, a choice made out of desperation more than anything.
Well, if I were going to do anything, I would sleep on the floor behind the couch.
Yeah.
Because I'm hidden. It's a little bit harder to get to me before I can wake up. But sleeping on the couch is just so obvious. It's like
desperation and lack of experience.
Well, yeah, child. She's a middle school child. Who has not seen very many movies, because even middle school children, if they've seen movies, they're going to pick stuff up and be like, well, that's not what you do. You do this.
Yeah.
So sure enough, she's asleep here, and the cleaning staff screams and wakes her up and screams out of surprise and screams for the security, police, or whatever, to the extent that they come in with guns blazing. Yep. She's Goldilocks-ing? Yeah, that's absolutely true. Goldilocks-ing.
Bill from Long Island, she's Goldilocks-ing. Yes,
if that's not a word, that should be a word now.
It should be, yes.
Yeah, a gerund, ing. So she runs off with the security guard, 2, 4, 5 shots at her. Doesn't hit her. Bad security guard, because he couldn't have been more than 15, 20 feet away. I mean, the width of a room, basically, not even that, actually half of a big office, because she runs away from him towards the window. And I guess she doesn't break through the window. She probably phases through it, but his bullets, he shoots the window, and it's like,
which is why they assume, they're not immediately like, oh my gosh, she phased through a window. She happened to do that as the glass is breaking. So they just assume she jumped through the window. So,
and then she disappeared, because they kind of look and they're like, oh, where did she go? Here, she finally dumps everything. We see the skates and the hat. We don't see the scarf, but in the panels here, she doesn't have the scarf. So she has left everything.
Yeah. Bill from Long Island asks, deadly force, security felt threatened.
Yes.
Yeah, and she even, I think she says something about that, doesn't she? He wasn't interested in taking me alive. He opened fire the moment he saw me. So,
well, and of course, we realize today what saved her is that the officer wasn't able to see her face. Otherwise, he'd have shot her in the face instead of just So
that's right.
I mean, that makes all the difference in the aiming techniques.
Yep. She wasn't in a car, and he didn't see her face.
And those of you 15 years from now that listen to this probably will have no clue what we're alluding to.
Yeah.
But we are definitely alluding to some contemporary news. So she makes it to the ground. She's getting wet because it is just full on storming outside. Don't know how long she slept. She didn't sleep out the night unless it's the next night, because it is still dark when she gets outside. She apparently, which to me, this is impossible, but on top of everything else, she's starting to get sick. Now, Claremont, the way this is written, wants us to believe that she's getting sick because she's probably cold and she's getting wet. Allow me to explain to people that is not why you get sick. Running outside in your bare feet in wet grass does not make you sick. Walking to your mailbox at the end of your driveway without a coat does not make you sick. That is not how it works. All the moms and grandmothers and what have you out there that tell your children that, shame on you, because that's not how it works.
We all know it's devils and demons.
Yeah, okay. Bad vapors.
It's the vapors.
So she's getting sick on top of now being drenched and having nowhere to go, not having money, not knowing anything about where she is. Her situation is about as dire. At this point, this is where the dude on the corner hooks her up with the dirty pictures, and we never see the child again. That's where this. She drops something on the ground that is found by the hero, days from now. But that in the movies, that's when this is going to happen. He cat whistles or wolf whistles at her and gets her into the porn, and that's it. She's gone.
Bill from Long Island thanks you. Thank you, viruses and bacteria.
That is something that has always bugged me, Bill, is that is, being an old wives' tale is fine, but so many people believe that. Doing things with your head uncovered, getting wet, Now, you may get sick when those things happen because of other issues happening in your body. Okay. Wet, your body needing to dry off, particularly getting cold, temperature, your body having to devote energy to raise your temperature to keep you warm, not having the energy to devote to other things allows things to progress. And so you get sick right after you get, chilled or cold. Okay. That's not causative. There's a connection, but there's not a causative connection. Anyways, so this is the biology degree in me coming out here. That's exactly what this is.
Yeah.
So, okay. So she's looking for someplace to go. Yes. You think of the human body as any machine. Any machine only at any one time only has so much energy, and it has so much energy to give to whatever the processes are that it's trying to do. So if you increase the need for energy for one process, it's going to reduce the amount of energy available for other processes. And it's whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, because Bill from Long Island points out reduced core temp and impact immune system. I like to think of your body like the Starship Enterprise, when they have to redirect energy to the front shields.
They have a finite amount. Yeah. In order to get all the shield energy, we need to stop the replicators. We need to stop environmental, turn out the lights. Yeah. I mean,
it's also why, the old wives' tale that the reason why you get so sleepy on Thanksgiving is primarily due to the tryptophan in the turkey. And that's not the case, because while tryptophan does make one sleepy, you'd have to ingest a whole lot more than just a bit of turkey. It's more like you've ingested so many calories that your body has now had to redirect energy to process that, to digest that and whatnot. And so it kind of helps. It kind of shuts your system down for a bit and makes you sleepy.
Turns some other things to lower, while all of that energy is directed to the gut and the big lump you got there to try to get rid of some of that. Or not to try to get rid of it, but try to use it the way it's supposed to.
Right. Yeah.
It takes energy to make energy. Yeah. So, okay. So we see her phase into this building. Doesn't tell us right off. She says she needs decent clothes, a hot bath, food, and money is the last thing she says. And then we see an ATM. Now, I understand a lot of you who are of a particular age or younger probably don't know what an ATM is.
They're still out there.
Do people use them?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, at least in Lawrence, for example, my bank, after hours, you can actually go up to the ATM. I mean, after bank hours, I don't know how long I can video chat with a bank teller somewhere. Maybe they're home for all I know.
At the ATM?
I've had to do that before. Okay. So
cool. So Kitty goes to an ATM and she has a crisis of conscience here. Yeah. She has the ability to rob the ATM machine. She has no money. She's in a very, very dire situation. So her situation equates to robbing the bank. She finds that even though she's a good guy, her situation is so bad that she needs money. And so she phases through, grabs some money, phases out with a big handful of money. Somewhere along the way, this sets off the alarm at the bank. I'm not sure if there is tampering or phasing I don't know what it is she did, because I would assume it would work too. I can't imagine a bank would be prepared for somebody that can phase and but
maybe just money being taken out of,
or
where it
maybe
sits.
What it is because of the camera, which you finally see up here. See her take the money. Maybe somebody that was watching the camera set off the alarm.
Yep,
maybe that's what it was. But no sooner does the alarm go off that there are police from a police car chasing after her.
Great response time in Tokyo.
Amazing. Yes. In her desire to get away, she forgets what she's doing. So she drops all the money and runs away. So all of this is for nothing. She doesn't get anything. And now she has at least 3 officers and a mobile unit here, the car, chasing after her through whatever parts of Tokyo that she has no idea where to go, how to get away from them, what the next turn is going to lead to. She just knows she's running away. So she just runs.
And I want to point out this last panel here on page 19. I always enjoyed it when they would do this back in the day, where the background is legitimately a photograph of a street in Tokyo, and then they've just made it comic booky. They've
laid
just
over
colored it all yellow.
Drawing. Yeah. Not montage. What is that called? Yeah, I can't remember what that's called. But yeah, every now and then, and I think about this time from the late 70s into the early 80s, that was like a really big play. This is really cool if we can do it, kind of thing. So a lot of particularly contemporary artists who also had their toes in the comic book world were doing this in their contemporary art for their magazines and their album covers and what have you. So, that is something that I think we miss. I don't know what are contemporary artists paid to do anymore. We don't have the pop culture outlets. Well, but in what?
I don't know.
Online? I mean, is that where it goes that you
designing
create stuff
logos
for?
And junk? I don't know.
Yeah, because somebody like a Jim Starlin, let's say, would he be able to make a living now doing what he was able to do in the 70s
but
and 80s?
I couldn't point to anything in particular.
Yeah, the comic book artists today. Do you know off the top of your head anybody that has also said they're a commercial artist?
I don't know if maybe they still, because I know that in the 90s and the late 90s going into 2000s, guys like Joe Mad stopped doing comics and was making money doing art for video games.
That's for video. That's a video game. I would consider that a specific. That's a video game artist if you want to call it or something. But is there a thing called a contemporary artist? Is that a line on a resume anymore? Or
I don't know.
I know there have been artists that do art for collectible card games. I used to be in collectible card games, and they would, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I think a commercial artist might be not contemporary, but a commercial artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Doing anything from logo design to storyboards for movies to stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. So she's running. There's a song trying to come to mind, but it's not coming to mind. So,
is it "Runaway" by Bon Jovi? She's a little run.
I was thinking "Run."
Oh, I know what you're. I know exactly what.
Yeah,
a little run away.
Yeah, so
run.
Beach Boys
run away.
Or
I don't think it's the Beach Boys. Jan and Dean, maybe.
Okay. Surf music, beach music. Yeah. She's running, makes a turn, dead end. So now she's stuck. Just as the officer here is okay. Also, I am not overly offended by the coloration of the officers. It's not as offensive as, say, Golden Age coloring were for Oriental characters.
Yeah, the scan that I'm looking at, I mean, their skin tone doesn't seem much different than Kitty's. So
yeah, it seems to be colored the same as hers. So
yeah,
okay. Whereas
if this was a Superman comic from the Golden Age, they would be yellow, unfortunately.
Yeah. So okay. I noticed because him and Kitty in this panel, the faces are close together, and I'm like, well, it's about the same tone, if not the same tone. So that's okay.
Yeah.
Good on you, Glennis Oliver Ween, whichever. Would you say Ween? Is that what she's going by now?
Yeah.
Glennis Ween. About to get her, and she says, and holds her breath and faces down into the sewer, just disappears in front of the dude like that. And it kind of sends him, because he was just about to grab her. They were at a dead end and she couldn't go any farther, and he had her and now she's gone. So, down into the sewer, we see she, phases, but then solidifies enough that she hits the actual bottom of the sewer, into the water, which is up because she's in the middle of a storm right now. Yep. So she's wet. She's coming down with something, and now she's got what is it that you get with when you're exposed to sewage in the third world countries?
Diphtheria?
possibly.
Something
But
like that.
there's a, yeah, I forget what the disease always is related to open sewage in places. So now but who knows whatever other diseases she's exposed to because she's dipping in open sewage here. So she's sick many different ways on top of being cold and nowhere, whatever. Okay. Interesting. Notice the sun pattern there?
I really enjoy this.
Cholera,
I don't know why.
Bill. Yeah, that's the
cholera.
One. Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
So now she has cholera.
Yeah, the sunrise on this next page 21, top panel. It's the Japanese
flag.
I don't know what you'd call that. The flag, yes.
Flag. The rising sun.
Yeah.
Art that is on the flag. They used it here in the background. So finally, So I'm going to guess that she landed, after sunset one day, has gone through one night, and now the sun is up. It's the next day. So she's been in Japan, who knows, 12, maybe 14 hours so far. So the sun rises and we catch up with Kitty. She's in in an alleyway, in a doorway here. You can tell she's dripped onto the sidewalk here where she's at. So she's sitting in some puddles. The rain has stopped, but now the difficulty of her plight really has come home, has hit home for her after this difficult night that she's had. And she's taking census, basically, of everything she doesn't have. She doesn't really know where her dad is. She has no money. She's tired. She's wet. She's potentially sick for a couple reasons. Maybe the dip in the sewer. Maybe she had some bug that's been exacerbated by flying up in the air and now being cold and wet and everything. So she's sick on top of sick and everything. She's like, okay, I got to call in the cavalry. I need some help. So she goes to the phone and she's going to make a collect call to Professor Xavier's school in New York, which, of course, we all know that if you make a collect call, you can get out a really quick message when the operator asks if you're going to accept the call. And you can actually get away with not doing it with any money. You just say, real quick, or you use a code if you have a code set up with whoever's on the other side. But,
she could have been like, this is Kitty. I'm in Tokyo. Please come help me.
Yeah, that's it. By the time, will you accept that? Click. And she's already gone. It's like, oh, okay. So, yeah. In college, I played that game quite a bit. Had a payphone on the floor, and that's how I would.
Now that's something that younger listeners may not know, is that there was a time when there was a thing called long distance. And if you were at a payphone, you either had to plunk in a bunch of quarters to make that long distance call, or you had to call collect, which meant the person on the other end would be paying for it.
You would reverse the charges. Yeah.
So the operator would have to get permission from that other person to take the call. Yeah.
If you didn't pay, you could just pick up, hit O for operator and say, I'd like to place a collect call. And they would manually patch it through and get permission verbally from the other person. During that time, you'd be like, yeah.
And it was one of the selling points when cell phones started to become a thing. One of the things, when they were still charging 25 cents a text, you could get long distance for free. That was like a big deal.
Yes.
It was a big selling point, was free long distance.
Only certain times of the day.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, only certain Monday through Friday at this time and on Sundays. Or, it's like, all the peak times. Yeah, no, not really. We're not going to do that for free. Yeah. Those initial cell phone plans were absolutely horrendous compared to what you can get now.
Yeah.
Yet another thing that younger people of a certain age and just wouldn't know because they didn't have to deal with that.
Yep.
Like, I don't have anything here with me, but the bag car phones that you used to get that were bigger than my head. With a magnetic antenna that you would put, or you could take off because it would cable wire attached to the phone. So it had to be connected to,
The first real cell phone I saw in real life was my grandparents had retired and they had started traveling in their Winnebago. Okay. And so they got a cell phone, and it was one of those big bag phones that they had in the Winnebago.
Yep. One of the first cool developments was an antenna that was permanent mounted, but you would glue it to the glass, and then another piece you would glue directly across from it on the glass. and the signal could transmit through the glass because it was,
that's cool.
Anyway, okay, yeah. Sorry. So Kitty is calling for help. She's phone a friend at Professor Xavier's school, and lo and behold, Wolverine smoking I was going to say a stogie, but that's not a stogie. That's is that a cherouche? Is that what that's called?
That's what it looks like. I don't know if it's because Al Milgrom doesn't know how to draw somebody smoking a cigar. Or
a cigar, or is it just a cigarette? It could just be a cigarette.
Who knows?
Which also, of course, is something in Marvel Comics that you're not allowed to do anymore. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I think so.
You can't show people smoking. But back in the day, particularly Wolverine. So she calls and Wolverine picks up. And because it's Wolverine, she says, which completely, and maybe in large part to this story, but today, the relationship between her and Wolverine, she would call hoping that is who she got.
Yes. But they haven't reached that point yet.
No, here she is so, I don't know who was she hoping she got Colossus or Storm maybe? I mean, who did you want to pick up? Professor Xavier?
Yeah. She does, when she slams the phone down, Wolverine slams the phone down and says, I can't speak, I'm too ashamed. But to that point, had Professor X, maybe if Storm had answered, would she have been able to?
I don't, but, now we know, well, there is nobody better to help you out in Japan on the X-Men than Wolverine. I mean, that is,
if I'm Kitty Pryde and I'm going to choose anybody, Wolverine, it's going to be freaking, let's see, I need somebody who kicks ass and, is fluent in Japanese and Japanese culture.
Know the people, know the places, and can got my back. Yeah, well, that's Wolverine. I mean, that's like his employment application. Those are the things that, that's, So he picks up, she hangs up, which I'll go ahead and spoil it and say that was all it took. But
that's all it took. Yep. And he calls her Punkin.
Yes. With no G and no M.
Yep.
Pumpkin. Yeah. So she's left, alone still. She hasn't solved anything. And she, I don't know, walking around or whatever, notices nearby where the phone was, whatever. She sees a TV display in a department store over there, and all over the TVs is a news report saying that the police are looking for this individual, and it's a picture from the bank, from the camera, and it is absolutely a full-face picture of her. No mask. Right? I'm sorry, never mind. Yeah, okay. No. I shouldn't do that. It's not, but so we see that the camera, was absolutely working. Got a shot of her, say that she's wanted for stealing money from that bank, that cash machine. So she's wanted for robbery. In Japan, I don't know how good or bad that is necessarily compared to us. I don't know.
Yeah.
So now
the comic book super show will return after these messages.
She's inside, so she is running somewhere. Maybe she went back to
in a comic book
building
rack
where
far,
she slept.
far away.
It's the only name
During
she knows.
the years
it's the
between
only
The Empire Strikes
has.
Back and Return of the Jedi,
she does know
Marvel Comics
that her
kept the Star Wars magic alive, delivering bold new stories, expanding the mythology, and taking our favorite heroes and villains on unforgettable adventures. Now join me, the irredeemable Shag, and an ever-changing roster of guest hosts as we journey back to this incredible era. We begin with a comic adaptation of The Empire Strikes Back and continue through the thrilling tales leading up to Return of the Jedi. If you're a seasoned Star Wars veteran who knows your share of Bree from your Hoojibs, or a brave explorer venturing into these comics for the first time, this is your hyperspace lane to classic Star Wars adventure. Join us for Marvel Star Wars, from Empire to Jedi,
funny thing,
every other month on the Fire and Water Podcast Network.
And she phases
beginning in June 2025.
Wall of the office, maybe into just another room in the office suite there. Whoever's opening the door says,
do you love podcasting but hate editing? Do you have a number of episodes recorded but just can't find the time to get them edited and ready for release? Do you need help and you're not sure what to do?
Shigematsu
well,
escorting
come
her
talk
dad,
to me.
Carmen, and he's speaking to Carmen.
My name is Steven Orr. I have over a decade of experience recording and editing my own podcast, and I want to put those skills to work for you. I can remove that background noise. I can reduce silences. I'll remove all of your ums and your uhs, as well as your throat clearing, sneezes, and coughs and such. And I can even add your music and whatnot.
Agreed.
And hey, my prices are quite reasonable.
There is the
Check out edityourpod.com to get started.
He didn't necessarily want to do that when they were in the U.S.
Or just reach out to me directly.
In Japan,
email edityourpod@gmail.com.
Now maybe they
tell me
have
what you need, and I'll tell you how I can help. And more importantly, I'll quote you a cost.
That same arrangement
edityourpod.com.
Okay,
get started today.
And she is somewhere and screams "Dad" because apparently she heard, at the very least, wherever it is she hid, we can't tell that she can see or can be seen. So
and now back to the comic book super show.
The conversation. She screams out "Dad" and has the appropriate panel
so
here
now
of her
she
being upset.
I don't know. The next panel shows her that she's inside.
Title of the next issue is running. And there we go.
Somewhere.
That is the start of a.
Maybe she went back
defining
to the
building where she
defining.
It's the only name she knows.
Defining
the only connection
she has.
Story,
and she does know ultimately that her dad
6 issues
is
will
connected to that name. The way that these
regardless of how loosely
interact or deal with each other on any level.
So
until now,
this is
Shigematsu's executive
for the next 40 years.
Sooner or later, Dad should show up here. So she goes back. To me, he is supposed to meet the dude. This is the dude's office,
now.
So logic says that he should wind up here.
Each time we record, I only read that issue.
Dude might meet her dad on the docks, and I never see her dad. Next issue. You don't know where they're going to meet. It's the meeting is kind of loose by the end of loose terminology when you're
Wolverine
dealing with
and Kitty
ne'er-do-wells.
Yep.
As far as
at the door,
reader,
she's there.
Everything about them.
And then the funny thing,
you knew moving
got
forward
because I couldn't remember.
Wow,
but she's
this
thinking,
is this is the dynamic now
through the wall,
which
of the
opened
office,
up a whole bunch of
just another
room in the office suite. But it's like whoever's opening the door says,
middle-aged.
I trust
female
you spent a pleasant evening.
Remember, it's a girl.
And I was like,
girls
aren't
shit, somebody knows
necessarily
she's
the most
there.
prized possession historically in Japanese
Shigematsu
culture,
escorting
at least
her dad,
as
Carmen,
has been relayed
and
to
he's
us
speaking to Carmen. So that's
I'm sure it
and we get
wasn't
the
necessarily the way
about
that it's
what
been portrayed.
The arrangement is
here.
Here.
In return
by and
for
large,
appropriate
remuneration,
females,
we will launder
with some
funds from our
exclusions
illicit
were
operations
secondary
citizens,
and from there channel them into legitimate investments. This is going to occur in Japan. Carmen says that agreed. So there is the arrangement. If we're in the 80s and we want to assume they're Japanese bad guys,
that when they were in the US,
assume that
but
the
now
Yakuza
is
man
somehow
in Japan
involved?
As far as we know. Now, maybe they have had other conversations that we have
Chinese
gangsters.
So
there has been no reference at all to Yakuza, apparently.
I don't believe throughout the
story that there is.
But
I just wonder if that was something that Claremont had in mind.
Dad.
Because mid-1980s ninjas were big.
At the very least,
the Yakuza was
wherever
big.
It is
a lot of these aspects of Japanese culture that
she can see
or
can be seen.
Everyday white America
the only thing I can figure is
she heard
that
is what was being thrown at them because
it
screams out Dad and has the
scary or unusual
panel here of her
however
being
it was
upset,
portrayed.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And then the title of the next issue is forward by the end of this series, and there we go. That is the start of
that I mentioned before miniseries.
It also did the same thing. But defining
after this, there's not
Kitty and Logan
too many
defining
Kitty and
Wolverine that are done.
This
6 issues
a
will
character
after that, as far as the X-Men
the way
are concerned.
that these two interact
or deal with each other on any level.
More than my enjoyment
now,
per se.
So
it is what
for the next
do
40
with these
years
characters
and how this is used moving forward.
And
that really,
to me,
the impact of this story
time,
for me
and now,
really is,
and probably
each time we
more
record, I only read that
the
issue.
Fact that
I have not read ahead.
Yeah.
And I
wrote down a couple of notes.
I haven't either. The first one is in regard to Kitty Pryde now. By the end of this, maybe it's just
Wolverine
me,
and Kitty.
I kind of feel like the Kitty Pryde
as
of
far
the
as the
X-Men
reader,
now.
Everything
like
about
she's like
them,
the Dick Grayson of the
you
X-Men.
knew moving forward
that Dick
wow,
Grayson of the Batman world is kind of
the dynamic now.
He's just become kind of this,
which opened up
almost
a whole
like
bunch of possibilities.
He's the guy that will step up and lead,
but it's like
you've taken this. I just feel like Kitty Pryde is kind of at that level.
Also, remember, it's a girl
right now.
She's even stepped away from active X-Men a couple times.
Possession and
historically in Japanese culture
back into the fold.
At least as it was really against our wishes.
To us white people.
So I'm sure
I'm not overly familiar with
Dick
necessarily
Grayson,
the way that it's been portrayed.
Kind of like the heart of the X-Men.
But by and large,
but in regard to the story, go back
with
to page
some
21.
Exclusions were
Bottom panel, just before that, as she's approaching the phone.
So the fact that this is going to occur in Japan,
I must have a fever. What a surprise.
The bad guys,
serve me right
if we're in the 80s and we want to assume they're Japanese bad guys, can we go ahead and assume that the Yakuza is somehow involved?
For some of Peter's special cuddles.
But that would be the
Chinese
what they're trying to allude to
there. There has been no reference
at all. I don't believe throughout the story that there is. Innocently. But I just wonder if that was something that Claremont had in mind.
In the UK,
a hug. Mid-1980s, ninjas were big.
Okay.
The Yakuza was big.
Claremont
a lot of these aspects of Japanese culture
would tell you
common
that Claremont was
alluding to full-on anal sex did not understand
or something
hardcore. And I'm like, and whatever scary or
because
unusual.
Apparently, according to the scholars,
Claremont was a closet freak when it came to writing and moving forward. By the end of this series,
I didn't know about that.
I'd
always heard that he was just very
empowering. It also did the same thing.
Empowering when it came to the female characters.
There's not too many. Typically, when I hear somebody say that about Claremont, they're not saying it as a pejorative, but just a character after he was a freak. As far as the X-Men
look at all these sexual illusions. Look at all these.
So this is
boy-girl illusions,
more than my
enjoyment
per se. And I'm like, what they do with these characters and how this is used moving forward.
Well,
and really, the impact
for me,
of this story
it's not
for
even
me
the
really
word cuddles.
Probably
cuddle is a very innocent word.
The fact that I enjoyed
the fact that he put special in there. I wrote down a couple of notes, which could just
the
mean
first
that
one
is in regard
being able
to Kitty Pryde now
with Peter is special.
Right? It's a special
maybe it's just
thing
me,
because
but
she doesn't.
I kind of feel like
cuddle
the
or
Kitty
snuggle
Pryde
up with
of the
anybody
X-Men
else.
now
It's kind of like she's like the Dick Grayson
hook up,
of the X-Men.
watching the movies and Pete would reach
Dick
under
Grayson
the
of the
cover
Batman
and
world is kind of
masturbate her with her hand.
He's just become kind of this almost like he's the guy that'll step up and see how people could look at that and go, I just feel like Kitty Pryde is kind of at that level.
Special.
I disagree.
Okay, she's even stepped away from active X-Men.
It's almost got an adult
been.
The kind of thing that an adult would say to a young kid.
And you, as a I'm not overly familiar with Dick Grayson, but okay, I'll take that from the reading.
Kind of like the heart of the X-Men.
You, as a 12 or 13-year-old, would have blown right by the word special.
Go back to page 21. Bottom panel,
you as a 12 or 13-year-old, actually were probably the primary demographic it was aimed at.
Thinking to herself,
not
I must have a fever.
As
what a surprise!
Father of
Serve
children,
me right
if
I drop dead of some loathsome disease. And then here's the part that I want to point out.
Reading
what
into the fact that he used the word special is what's happening there.
Special cuddles.
Yeah,
because if I'm, let's say for example, I am Carmen Pryde. What kind of special cuddles? Kitty's over the holidays
at the time would have.
You got a boyfriend over there at the school? I would have. Yes, Peter Rasmussen. He's my boyfriend.
For instance,
we have special cuddle time. I'd be like, okay, you got to explain that. Yeah, okay, you're 15 years old. You got to explain what that means to me.
Okay. Would tell you everything is not was alluding to full-on anal sex between the two of them or something hardcore. And I'm like,
you want to talk about the art real quick?
Because apparently, according to the scholars, Claremont was a closet freak when it came to writing female adventure X-Men.
I always heard that he was just very empowered. It was very
have to go this way because
when it came to
X-Men, it's Wolverine and Kitty Pryde. So there's color. Typically, when I hear somebody say that about Claremont, they're not saying it as a pejorative. All of that stuff. This is not the style. Look at all these sexual illusions. Recently reading the X-Men, girl illusions and women illusions. The greatest X-Men artist ever. In reading, I don't see it prior to this. I believe he's left by now.
With this, for me, it's not even the word cuddles. Cuddle is a very innocent word. The fact that he put
and I'm going to use these words
special cuddles,
and maybe I mean it in a mean way, but I don't necessarily mean it personally.
Being able to cuddle.
This artwork does not hold a candle to John Byrne.
Right? It's a special thing because she doesn't agree. She doesn't hug or cuddle or snuggle up with anybody else. Right?
And that's what is hook up while watching the movies and Pete would reach under the cover and masturbate her with his hand. That kind of artwork.
The mystery stories, special. I could see how people people could look at that and go, ooh.
Particular
he didn't say just cuddles.
Things like that. That is the style of art.
Okay.
Bill Mantlo.
It's got for me, it
would be okay for like
an adult.
I mentioned a ROM or something like that. Because ROM
the kind of thing that an adult pervert would say to a young kid.
Kind of dark overall.
As
he's an alien.
Grown man with children.
But something like this is supposed to be,
you as a 12 or 13-year-old
more
would
distinct
have blown
line.
right by the word special.
Smaller,
it would have
line. But
more
as a 12 or 13-year-old
and clear
actually
artwork.
were probably
and
the primary
demographic it was aimed at.
Darkly, which
not
it is a dark
as
story
the
as we go on.
Father of children,
heavily
colored.
So it's like. And it's shadowed and hatched and
reading
and
into the fact that he used the word special is what's happening
rather than leaning to
because
a lighter,
let's say, for
art
example,
style.
I am
now
Carmen
part of that
Pryde.
may be because of the story.
And
I'll give
Kitty's
you
home
that.
for the holidays,
but even the darker,
you got a boyfriend over there at the school.
John
Byrne
at this time could do just fine. I mean,
we have special cuddle time. I'd be like, okay, you got to explain that.
But this is
you're 15 years old. You got to explain what that means to me.
You know, the art sucks, or don't read it.
Everything is not
about
artist,
or the artist took me out of the story, or anything like that.
So,
but personally,
you want to talk about the art real quick?
Other artists at this time that I would have preferred. Arthur Adams would have been another cool one to have on this. I would have preferred seeing
adventure
than Mantlo style art here.
Milgrom,
which we haven't seen too much yet, but I have to go this way.
I think if given the choice, sure, I would have loved to have seen what John Byrne could have done with this series.
Not a whole lot of color necessarily here, but colorful uniforms.
I'm okay with Al Milgrom.
All of that stuff
on this book.
This is not the style.
There are going to be
Plus
moments. I think when it comes to some of the action scenes, there's going to be moments coming up
came off of
some of the issues where
he
has like he'll have like one of the guys standing in a certain pose holding a sword.
I believe he's
supposed to be charging across the room with his sword.
John Byrne.
And he just basically has him in this pose, has a guy in this pose holding the sword, and then he's got these motion lines.
And I'm going to use these words.
And it doesn't look like the guy's running,
but I don't.
It looks like somebody just took a cardboard cutout of him, and it's just moving it across the room.
At this time.
That's the only problem I've ever really had with his art, other than the fact that, you know, he's the guy that stepped in and did a couple of issues on Secret Wars.
And that kind of artwork.
You take
the mystery stories,
take a Mike Zeck issue, and then you go to an Al Milgrom issue, and it's like, no, don't ever do this ever again.
No, things like that. That is the style of art.
That obviously was a we just need to find someone.
Even it would be okay for like
we need to maintain
a ROM
this
or something
style
like that, because ROM kind of
he obviously knows what he's doing. He knows how to put panels together, perspective, all that stuff.
You know,
he did well enough to get,
but you know, but something like this is supposed to be. You know, no, I'm not cleaner.
More not once did I get lost with the art, which is a big thing.
No, not at all.
But that's the one thing I always look at nowadays when it comes to artwork. Did I get lost at all in the story? Did I go from a panel to another panel going, how the hell, what the hell's going on?
Colored,
you know,
the art itself tells the story. Shadowed and hatched
well enough, I think, for the whole
everything
book.
about it.
I think there would have been no problem following
rather than leaning to a lighter.
Do you want anything else you want to say about this? Or do you want to look at some of the ads?
Because of the story. I'll give you that.
No, I think I'm good as far as
darker, moodier stories. John Byrne at this time could do just fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with his artwork in that style story. But this is, I'm not going to say,
you know, the first ad we get is
read it for
Mario Brothers.
Or the artist took me out of the
Mario
story
Brothers
or anything
video
like
game
that.
cartridge for
but
Atari.
Personally,
this was inside front cover.
There are other artists at this
which you
time
can tell
because
it's kind of got that glossy
Arthur
kind of
Adams
look
was another cool one to have on this.
Exactly. Doesn't have that
I would have
newsprint
preferred
look.
seeing the cover
another smash arcade hit brought home only by Atari.
Or Milgrom.
Exciting two-player action. It's almost like given the choice, sure, I would have loved to have seen what John Byrne could have done with this series. The Fig Newton map. I'm okay with Al Milgrom on this book. What do they call it? The maze. There are going to be moments. I think when it comes to some of the action scenes, there's going to be moments coming up
to write
some of the issues where he has like he'll have like one of the guys even as a kid, if I saw somebody holding a sword, he's supposed to be charging across the room with his sword. As I said. And he just basically has him in this pose, has a guy in this pose holding the sword. I don't know if I ever had the Apple these motion lines. And it doesn't look like the guy's running. It looks like somebody just took a cardboard cutout of him, and it's just moving it across the room. Right. We get that's the only problem I've ever really had with his art. Dazzler, other than the fact the movie, which is the 12th he's the guy that stepped in did a series of graphic novels that on Secret Wars were numbered 1 through whatever, and this was number 12. You take Mike Zeck. Their own Mike Zeck issue, and then you go to an Milgrom issue, and it's like, and this, no, don't ever do this ever again.
The story, if you know anything about the history obviously of was we just kind of look at someone what the story is about. We need to maintain. Really went into detail about.
He obviously knows what he's doing. He knows how to put panels together.
Mini series right after this called, and he did it well enough to get a job. And it was about her for a long time. You know, I'm not Beast Hank McCoy of the X-Men.
Not once did I get lost with the art, which is the thing.
No, not this at all. Actually,
that's the one thing I always look at nowadays when it comes to artists.
Probably about the first time that
did I get lost at all in the story? Did I go from a panel to another panel going, what the hell's going on?
The art itself, people here and there would see something funky or whatever. I think for the whole book, but this was I think there would have been no problem introduction. I really think of mutants.
Do you want anything else you want to say about this, or do you want to look at some of the
graphic novel and then the Beauty and the Beast miniseries? No, I think I'm good as far as
according to this ad,
story itself.
This graphic novel is already on stands or at comic book stores, and we have a picture, like a poster. It's a poster of Alice and Blair, the Dazzler, and somebody has painted. The first ad we get is a Mario Brothers. A game for a Mario Brothers video game. The world now knows Alice and Blair's
secret. This was inside.
What happens next will affect every living mutant
it's kind of got that glossy.
I don't know that I read
this.
Did you read this? Exactly. It doesn't have that newsprint.
I don't know that I read the cover.
Another Smash arcade hit brought home only by Atari. We got an ad for the New York Comic Book Convention, which does not list any, doesn't list anybody who's going to be there. It does say that there will be artists there. But doesn't the Fig Newton map ad. We haven't gotten to the point where the reason why you go to a comic book convention is to have to take the draw isn't the artist.
To give you an excuse to write in the
buying and selling. Right. And then we got a couple of. If I saw even as a kid, if I saw somebody doing that, I might smack them.
No, never.
Give them a fresh one. Don't know anything else about it.
No idea. Fig Newtons too.
We have let's see, Moondance Enterprises under new ownership, selling only fine and mint condition comics.
The regular Fig Newtons.
So they don't make the Apple Newtons anymore.
Comic book store.
I don't know if I ever had them back then. Computerized to guarantee fast service. In-house ads for it's Dazzler. It's either a movie, which is the 12th of the Marvel graphic novel. Somebody selling stuff out of series of graphic novels.
You weren't really ordering online.
We're numbered 1 through whatever, and this was number 12. But they were all. This would be mailing away for stories in each graphic novel.
This one is in Connecticut, and then the other one over here is over in Oklahoma. If you know anything about the history of mutants in the Marvel universe, you can kind of look at this and tell what the story is about. Couple store ads, really went and then down at the bottom we have what this meant filling out the rest in of the miniseries right after this called the people who placed the ads were told how much room they had, and it was about and they submitted ads that were smaller than the amount of room, so they had to finish filling the page with this little. And my Dazzler, I believe this actually was for 30 years working wife, probably about the first time more about it. Was attempted to be turned out common knowledge that mutants even existed, maybe even in a negative sense. I don't know. People here and there would see something funky or whatever.
You'll be able to meet famous Marvel comic artists, writers, and editors.
I really think
learn what it takes
into the Marvel universe
in the comic book business,
graphic novel, and then
buy and sell and trade tons of old and new Marvels. According to this ad, films, auctions, art, this graphic novel is already on stands. Sounds like a lot of the stuff we get nowadays at a convention. And we have a picture, like a poster, a poster of Alice and Blair, the Dazzler, and somebody. This is apparently a traveling convention because it also says that it's coming to Boston. The entire world now knows Philadelphia and September in Chicago. What happens next?
Well, whoever owns it,
every living
Wizard World was like that.
I don't know that I read this.
And then
did you read this? Yes.
The name of the company that owns New York Comic Con also is the.
We got an ad for the New York Comic Book Convention, which does not list any, doesn't list anybody who's going to be there. It does say that there will be artists there. Tons of ads on
multiple small ads.
We haven't gotten to the point where the reason why you go to a comic book convention is to meet. Learn karate. The draw isn't the artist. There's a few store ads here for buying and selling. Order comic. And then we got a couple of. My favorite one is where you can get the Switchblade or the Switchblade Tome. Don't know anything else about the Switchblade scissors, tweezers, and nail file. Let's see. Moondance Enterprises under new ownership, selling only fine brass knuckles. They call it the knuckle buckle.
So you're going to presume that's a Mile High Comic Book Store? Probably is the only thing on this page that's still around.
computerized to guarantee.
I know Mile High is, but I don't know about all
of the others. It's either a store or it's just somebody selling just seeing the ad for Mile High.
Because you weren't really ordering
the one time I was in
online
Denver last year. I had to go. No, this would be mailing away. We have the obligatory for build your muscles ad,
and then the other one over here is over on a full page costing in your face thing, which does sound like a comic book store.
Well, let's see. You can get a
store ads, and then down at the bottom we have
to fool your friends,
filling out the rest of it.
Sounds fun.
Apparently,
the rest of these ads are all for various comic book
places. How much room
stores
or they submitted ads that were smaller than the amount here, so they had to finish filling a page with this little.
Here's one in the corner to get your high school diploma.
I believe my newspaper for 30 years working wife could
and then we have
tell us more about
an ad for diamond rings
size and why this turned out.
I meant to add up
maybe even in a negative sense.
20 payments of $45 each convention, would be, or 20 payments
you'll
of $30.
Be able to meet famous
see how much these rings are writers and editors
of 45
learn what it takes
900 of 30
to make it in the comic book business. I am putting this out there. I would like to know if anybody ever bought a diamond ring. There's films, based on this ad. Art and costume contests. Sounds like a lot of the stuff you're getting nowadays at a convention.
It's the man's pretty much
band,
except for the woman's movie and TV star ring. And
this is apparently a traveling convention because it also says that it's coming to Boston
is not too bad.
And then Philadelphia in September, Chicago.
Well, whoever owns $200 like, a ring. Remember, Wizard World was like a pretty decent ring. And then
military diamond sales.
The name of the company that owns New York Comic Con also is
active duty military personnel only
around the country.
May contact my employer for credit purposes.
I can't think of their name. Well, there you go.
Get one of these classic ad pages with just tons of ads on it. Have an ad where you can camouflage clothing. You can buy camouflage clothing that stuntmen karate on set. I guess there's a few store ads here for comic, and then a comic world comic books through the mail. My favorite one is where you can get the switchblade, a lot of switchblade comb, or a lot of switchblades that are scissors, tweezers, and nail file.
Manitoba.
Bill Fuller on Island says a former co-worker's father was CFO. They called it the Knuckle Buckle Jewelry Company. They did big business.
Wow.
Okay.
Probably is
nice
connection there.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Which I know Mile High.
And then we got Spider-Man.
All of the others. Just
an image.
Because
growing up, just seeing the ads for Mile High Comics. That's why the one time I was in Denver last year, I had to go.
Or is that a Gil Kane Spider-Man?
We have the obligatory build your muscles.
Somebody who has a better eye. It's just a little ad. It's not that full page. That kicks in your face thing.
But otherwise, most of these
Gil Kane or John Romita.
Well, let's see.
I guess I'll go with Romita, but something about it makes me think Gil Kane too.
To fool your friends. So that's that. Then we have an ad. Otherwise, the rest of these ads are Marvel merchandise. We got the Secret Wars figures or Mattel. We got a web shooter
catalog here,
and a thing that shoots Captain America's flying shields. Here's one in the corner to get your high school diploma. Marvel Supermart, where collectors can go who are looking for back issues. And then we have they've got a lot of locations. An ad for diamond rings
in Florida.
I meant to
Jippy's Comic World.
What's
the name of the dude
20
that
payments
started
of $45 each
company
would
that
be,
did previews?
Or 20 payments of $30.
I don't know.
See how much these rings are? 900.
That's a good question. I don't know. Of 45 is 900. Of 30 is 600. Yeah,
I am putting this out there. They're also in Virginia. To know if anybody ever bought a diamond ring.
He was the promotional
through the mail based on this ad.
That makes sense. And these are
Spider-Man. Thank you,
It
Billy.
looks like these are
we've got
three rings.
Jeppies
the
in Florida and one in
Virginia. And the woman's engagement ring
is the diamond guy.
Okay, I thought that's why I recognized that name.
All
three of
those
guy for $600
again,
is
Billy
not
D?
too bad.
There is no
it still would have been a lot of money then.
Bulletins,
$200 a ring.
I didn't really read through this much, so I don't know if
decent ring.
We do military diamond in the hype box. They talk about the issue we're reading right now.
Yeah, it's just a letter about
active duty military personnel only.
He's dead, Jim.
Oh, may contact my employer for credit purposes.
Well, there you go. Okay, or his business is. Yeah, his business definitely.
Let's see. We have an ad where you can order the exact
Kitty
type of
Wolverine. I read Star Wars. I didn't read, but I know about it. The Black Panther. I read. The graphic novel. I read.
And then a
official tryout book. I never messed with that.
Ad,
I can't draw for shit.
Is very hard to read.
That's why I record podcasts. They crammed a lot of
stuff. They have listed under the checklist under a lot of the comics that are for sale.
Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Bill from Long Island says a former coworker's father was CFO for that military
which
jewelry
was kind
company.
of the point for Epic.
They did big
Coyote
business.
was very
nice connection
what you're reading in these other books here to the left.
That's crazy.
I mean, it was a distinctly different.
And then we got Spider-Man.
And here's some more
an image
again.
Because they couldn't fill the space.
Okay, these are super specials.
That
I was going to
a,
say graphic novels, but the graphic novel is down here at the bottom.
Or is that a Gil Kane Spider-Man?
We have the subscriber page, which
somebody who has a better
these,
eye
I always just
than me
want to die because I wish I could
say,
pay, what is it, 16 issues,
$6.50 I guess I'll go with Romita,
yeah, for $6.50.
Something about it makes me think Gil Kane, too.
But, I mean, my parents were paying that because I was getting both G.I. Joe and Captain America. A lot of Marvel merchandise. We got the Secret Wars figures. I think from Mattel, we got a web shooter getting. And a thing we each got two Captain America's. He might have been getting flying shields. I know we were getting that. But Marvel Super Mart, John Byrne art where here with Sasquatch. Can go or looking for back issues. I've never been able to enjoy a lot of locations. Any of these
in Florida
Alpha Flight characters
comic
drawn by anybody else.
Is that the name of the dude that started?
I've tried to get into the newer Alpha Flight books, and it's just not. Especially Sasquatch. He's never looked the same.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Is this the
inside back?
Okay, so this inside back cover.
Is Jeffy?
They're also in Virginia.
Yeah, it's
more than likely Romita. He was
a
promotional product guy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Choose your own adventure here.
Yeah, we've got a.
Those
Jeffy's in Florida and one
have come back in Virginia.
Yes.
I wonder if somebody is Jeffy is the diamond
actively publishing Choose Your Own Adventures again. Yeah.
Did you ever get to a page and it's like, okay, do you get this or this? And so you go, you do the one. But you leave your thumb bulletins, and you go and see what happens real quick. Oh, no.
Go a little ways past.
And it's like,
in the hype box, they talk about these.
I'm going to go back now.
Yeah, it's just a letter about.
I never took my hands off the piece. I can move it back.
Until I
never took my thumb off the page.
Yeah, I know. These were diamond.
Yeah.
But this is an ad for the official TSR.
I think
Endless Quest.
And what was the big deal at the time about TSR? Kitty and Wolverine I read. Star Wars
Dungeons and Dragons.
I know about it. The Black Panther I read. The
TSR stood for Tactical Systems.
Official trial.
Something. I can remember what that R meant.
I can't draw for shit.
Yeah. Billy D says, love the demon in the back, listed under someone's checklist under Epic Comics.
On this ad, you mean the guy back there, the 6, 8?
The left-hand side stuff.
That Coyote was a fun book.
Of course,
it was very automatically, not automatically,
which was kind of the point for Epic.
It puts me in mind of those very little D&D,
not what you're reading in these other books here.
The little D&D
I mean, it was a distinctly different type of writing for that.
Drawn, and here's some more than Bill Willingham of the... Who is much more known today for being a writer than his art.
The graphic novels down here at the bottom.
D&D story pages.
We have the
that
subscriber page, which whenever I run across these, I always just look at this little demon guy because I wish I could notice him.
Oh man,
what is
under
it?
The
16 issues,
$6.50 for 16 issues.
Yeah, for
maybe that's what Billy's referring to. I was looking up here at the upper left.
I mean, I was. My parents were paying that because I was getting both G.I. Joe and Captain America at the time.
Much more in person.
Waiting for somebody to come down that path. I think. I don't know what my little brother was getting because we each got two.
The Star Wars arcade game comes home.
Which just means it's John Byrne art
now
here.
Video
with
game you can play at home through the
I've never been able to enjoy
2600
any of these
ColecoVision, Commodore
Alpha
64
Flight characters.
I love
drawn
this game
by
at the
anybody
arcade.
else. The
graphics are just literally.
I've tried to get into the newer Alpha Flight
line,
and it's just not.
Yeah, that's where it's
especially Sasquatch. He's never looked the same.
Nothing wrong with that.
But that's it's just like the inside back cover.
The X-wing.
No, it's
they're going down the trench. That's what their readout looked like. That was their computer readout.
Also has an ad.
I love this game.
Choose your own adventure here. D&D type
those
adventure games
those
on computer were nothing but these lines.
I love those books, man.
First actively publishing Choose Your Own Adventures again. That's all it was just.
Did you ever get to a page and it's like, okay, do you want to do this or this? So you go, you do the one.
Something about this guy that's always impressed me.
You go and see what happens real quick. Oh no!
Go a little ways past, and it's like, I don't like where that's going. What was your choice? This could be, man.
Oh yeah, it's like with chess. I never took my hands off the piece. I can move it back.
Until I never
took my thumb off the page.
Skating, roller skating graphics.
But this is an ad for the official TSR. Bill from Long Island. Endless Graphic Star Wars was the
stuff. What was the big deal at the time about TSR?
Billy D says, love the 2600. My grandpa bought one for her house. Billy, did we grow up together? Because that's the exact same thing that happened to me.
Systems.
That's also how I got introduced to comics. My grandma would go out to garage sales and buy stuff and bring it home. So we'd have have something to do when my parents came every weekend to visit.
On this ad,
so
you mean the guy
showed
back
up.
there?
We showed up one weekend and there was a big old box of comics.
This automatically
nice. And it puts
me in mind
stuff. There was a lot of stuff like Richie Rich
D&D
and Huey, Dewey, and Louie and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I gravitated towards.
Stories.
Whereas my brother, it was like there was Tarzan and stuff like that.
None other than Bill
No Shot.
No, the next one.
Or the
who is much more known today for being a writer than his art.
Yeah, but one weekend we show up and she's got a freaking Atari 2600 and a box of games that she bought at a garage sale. I mean, the Atari was still fairly new. Look at this little demon guy. Just noticed she got it at a garage sale because it came with a custom-made cabinet that someone had built.
Billy's referring to. I was
looking
all in.
We still have the cabinet. I think it's in my daughter's room right now.
Down here in the lower right,
it might be
much more imposing.
Waiting for somebody to come down that path. I think Billy D and I grew up. And then our last ad is the back of the book. The Star Wars. We had a Commodore 64 at home. Which just means it's now a video game. I remember the day I learned how to type in some code 2600 and border color and the ColecoVision. Yeah, it was like so cool. We had a skating rink. The graphics are skating rink in Lawrence all blue line. It's just like line framework.
That's where it started.
Arcade games there as well. And one of the games they had was just like the Star Wars Vector. In the X-Wing, and it was one of the cabinets down the trench. That's what their readout like you were sitting in an X-Wing computer readout. So I loved that game.
Some of the first D&D type quest
adventure games. Should we name the guy here in our
nothing but these
microphone guy here?
Podcast Man out on
Podcast Pete.
And that's all it was. Just it was because he's got a microphone there on his head,
like asteroids and.
There's something about this guy that's always impressed me is that whenever they took this picture, he had no boogers.
I mean, that's good.
That could be a blue yeti. Those nasal passages were just as clean as
there's a line of microphones that are popular amongst podcasters.
And so let's get somebody to ask us, why is he called skating or roller skating?
That's his name. That's it.
That was
there we go.
Bill from Long Island. Vector Graphics Star Wars was the stuff.
Flag
Billy D says, love the 2600. My grandpa bought one for her house. Billy, did we grow up together? Because that's the exact same thing that happened to me. That's also how I got introduced to comics. My grandma would go out to garage sales and buy stuff and bring it home. That's what I was going to put up, but I made it make you sick. Every weekend visit. So she not only does the head rotate, we showed up one weekend and there was a big old box of comics that she'd gotten at the garage sale.
The financial side of things.
And it was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff like Richie Rich and you could get a suit made, stuff like that. And that's kind of what I gravitated toward. Conventions. Whereas my brother was like, there was Tarzan or something like that.
So it's
Gil Kane No Shot.
Right next to me.
The next one.
And
or the bro hug. That was that a Christmas gift last year?
Grandma.
But one weekend we show up and she's got a freaking Atari 2600 and a box of games that she bought at a garage sale. I mean, the Atari was still fairly new at the time, but she got it at a garage sale because it came with a custom-made cabinet that someone had built to put it all in. We still have the cabinet, I think, is in my daughter's room right now.
The thing that we enjoyed the most, and most people who listened either enjoyed or enjoyed.
I think Billy D and I grew up together.
Was talking about the ads and the ColecoVision.
Yeah, I do enjoy that. We had a Commodore 64 at home.
If they're done, if they're talked about correctly.
I remember the day I learned how to type in some code and change the border color and it was like so
fruit and
but we had we had a skating rink, one roller skating rink in Lawrence called 20 other ads, and it's trying to sell you Nazi memorabilia. They had you can make fun of that arcade games there as well, and one of the games they had was
just even overlook it. I'm like,
Star Wars
you could buy Nazi stuff
graphics game, and it was one of the cabinets that you got into. It's like you can buy it's like you were sitting in an X-Wing. You can buy these gold coins that have
my favorite game.
Superhero faces on them.
That's
it. You can buy a helmet. Should we name the guy here in our microphone guy here? Podcast Man that they would wear.
Podcast your motorcycle with a Podcast Man will be good because he's got a microphone.
Anything else you want to say about the issue? Maybe or
Captain
should I
Yeti?
wrap it up?
No, I don't think anymore. I'm definitely looking forward to.
I mean,
moving through and talking about the rest of these issues. Some really cool,
there's a line of
stuff.
Microphones that are popular amongst podcasters.
And so let's get somebody to ask us.
That's why it's funny.
Why is he
in our next episode? Kitty lands in Japan and is immediately targeted for death by the Japanese underworld. Can Wolverine reach her in time?
Yeti,
will the Japanese overlords of crime succeed in slaying him too?
Yep.
That's coming up on episode 2. Ed and I take a look at Kitty Pryde Wolverine number 2. I have a gift. So until next time, folks, I'm Steven. That's Ed. And this was the comic book That's what I was going to put up. Thank you for listening.
No, let's not do that.
Not only does the head rotate, it as it's rotating.
Here we go. Bill from Long Island thinking of the financial side of things.
We want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Comic Book Super Show.
Because
questions and comments can be directed to the Comic Book Super Show at so many podcasts.com.
My
if you enjoyed the show, you can help to boost our presence online by leaving a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. I also invite you to join our subscription program, Steven or Else Beyond. And in return, you'll get episodes of the Comic Book Super Show early and ad-free. Check out the link in the show notes, or just go to beyond.stevenorelse.com to sign up today. The Comic Book Super Show is a presentation of Steven or Else Media. For more nerdy content just like this, check out so many podcasts.com.
And most people
All
who
links
listened
will
either
be in the show
enjoyed or enjoyed us doing it the most was talking about the ads in those books.
Yeah, I
Kitty
do
Pryde
enjoy that when I hear the X-Men and travel to Chicago in order to recover from her breakup with Colossus.
They're a lot of fun. I mean,
she visits her father at his bank where she learns that he is in trouble with some Japanese businessmen who seem unlistenable and who want Carmen Pryde to meet their boss. One ad on a page of 20 other ads, and it's trying to sell you Nazi memorabilia. Kitty stows away on a plane to Tokyo.
I
did not write this.
I would probably just even overrule it. You got Nazi stuff. I swear that I'm going to get on a plane.
Okay. It's like you can buy Spider-Man's web shooters. You can buy these gold coins that have
synopsis this way.
Superhero faces on them in a row with Tokyo. I don't like that. That makes me sad for some reason.
Yeah. Almost you feel like you repeated it. Wait a minute.
Helmet, right? That they would wear. Kitty stows away. Kitty stows away on a plane to Japan. See, anything else you want to say about the issue? Kitty stows. Should I wrap all this is going at the end. This is our blooper segment.
Anymore. I'm definitely looking forward to.
I don't think I can move through life knowing that a guy named Steven did this to me.
How could you let this happen, Steven?
Stuff occurs.
Thank God. I had a horrible feeling I was going to be the only one here.
Want a piece of fruit?
MIT Edward. Yes.
In our next episode, Kitty lands in Japan and is immediately targeted for death by the Japanese underworld. Can Wolverine reach her in time, or will the Japanese overlords of crime succeed in slaying him too? That's coming up on episode 2 when Ed and I take a look at Kitty Pryde Wolverine number 2, Terror. So until next time, folks, I'm Steven. That's Ed. And this was the Comic Book Super Show. Thank you for listening. Ciao. We want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Comic Book Super Show. Questions and comments can be directed to the Comic Book Super Show at so many podcasts.com. If you enjoyed the show, you can help to boost our presence online by leaving a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. I also invite you to join our subscription program, Steven or Else Beyond. And in return, you'll get episodes of the Comic Book Super Show early and ad-free. Check out the link in the show notes, or just go to beyond.stevenorelse.com to sign up today. The Comic Book Super Show is a presentation of Steven or Else Media. For more nerdy content just like this, check out so many podcasts.com. All links will be in the show notes. Kitty Pryde has left the X-Men and traveled to Chicago in order to recover from her breakup with Colossus. She visits her father at his bank where she learns that he is in trouble with some Japanese businessmen who seem to be criminals and who want Carmen Pryde to meet their boss, Shigematsu, in Tokyo. Kitty stows away on a plane to Tokyo. I did not write this synopsis. I should have rewritten it,
and then gets on a plane. She's like, I swear that I'm going to get on a plane. And okay.
No, that was just me misspeaking, but I wouldn't have written this synopsis this way. Ending 2 sentences in a row with Tokyo, I don't like that. That makes me sad for some reason.
Almost you feel like you repeated it. Wait a minute, did I say the same sentence? Yeah.
Kitty stows away on a plane to Japan. See, that's better. There you go. Kitty stows that all this is going at the end. This is our blooper segment.
Yeah.
I just don't think I can move through life knowing that a guy named Steven did this to me.
How could you let this happen, Steven?
Steven! Thank God. I had a horrible feeling I was going to be the only one here.
Want a piece of fruit?
MIT Edward. Yes.